he wants to pay for it. I guess he makes enough money, so that's bus cheap. Training bus people or whatever. Okay.
That has the command to handle local government that my office has. No.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our regular meeting of August the 23rd. I'd like to start the meeting off with our pledge of public conduct. We may disagree, but we will be respectful of one another. We will direct all comments to issues, and we will avoid personal attacks. That not only goes for this board here up on the dais, but also to everyone sitting down there. So with that being said, I'd like to go ahead and go to the invocation, which is led by Pastor Anthony Langhorn of the Bryant Chapel CME Church. Thank you.
Let us pray. Father, in the name of Jesus, we thank you right now, O God, as we enter into this meeting. You ordained it so long ago, Father, and we ask right now that you would rule and reign in this meeting so that every decision that is made, let each heart know that every decision is a major decision. And everyone that comes to speak, O God, let them speak according to your will so that we may have peace in this county. You have your way now. We thank you. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. We do have two time certains, one at 10 o'clock and one at 10:30. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. We have several proposed changes. First to the consent agenda. Under property management, item number 25, quick claim deed between Manatee County and Team Edition Apparel, Inc. for the 44th Avenue East project. We're requesting that be deferred to another date. And then there's an addition, introductions, item number 38, introduction of Mardi Buckman, Congressman Buchanan's office.
All right, thank you. And we're just going to head right to that. Mr. Tibbetts, if you'd like to come up front, please, and introduce us. Welcome, Mardi.
Good morning.
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 Madam Chair, Commissioner, Mr. Palmer, Mr. Hunsinger. For the record, I'm Gary Tibbetts, Special Assistant to Congressman Vern Buchanan, Law Enforcement Coordinator for the District and Field Representative for Manatee County. I come to you this morning to introduce to you our new constituent service worker. The Congressman prides himself as putting together a team that would really work with the constituents in the district, and I believe he's made a great choice with Mardi, who joined with us June 1st, but we haven't had a chance to get over to see you all. So without further ado, I introduce to you Mardi Buckman. She comes to us from Hillsborough County, and very happy to bring her into Manatee County. Mardi.
Great.
Thank you, Commissioners. I will say it is an honor to serve on behalf of the Congressman. The service that we provide to our constituents is above reproach, and we do the best we can to help them. Sometimes we get them answers they may not want to hear, but we do get the answers. So I look forward to serving, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Mardi. We're excited to have you here in Manatee County, and it's Hillsborough's loss. So if any of us can help you in any way, just let us know. We have a great relationship with the congressman, and glad to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
There it is.
All right, moving right along this morning. We'll go ahead and now with the Employee of the Month. Charlie.
Oh.
I see some pretty flowers back there.
Yes, and And moving to the Best Dressed Award, Mr. Lightburner, Supervisor. No. Couldn't help but do that. This is just, these are great moments for all of us. You know, with 1,400 plus employees, to be able to be chosen Employee of the Month is a great honor across all divisions, all departments, and all work. And it reflects our personal commitments to you, the Board of County Commissioners, and to our public for outstanding service that often goes unrecognized, but on days like this, it is wonderful to be able to recognize those truly stellar employees like Mallory and her team and the department. I reflect on the memberships at the department, which have a lot to do with interactions at GT Bray. We've gone from 400 members to 1,800 members in 3 years. We have experienced, when Mallory first came to our department, we had about 15 exercise programs per month. Now we're working at 30 due to Mallory's expansive enthusiasm to bring folks to our programs. We also have our outreach programs where we work with our yoga programs in the library, yoga programs at the beach. I think the last beach yoga program drew 80 participants, a good venue, but a great instructor. And it's just with this enthusiasm that I'm going to say nothing more but to honor your employee, Mallory, and her family here. And Jeff Lightburn has a few remarks, her immediate supervisor. And I've seen these two at work, both within Bray. I've seen them give presentations at our state conferences in Orlando, our national conferences, and it's a team effort. And Mallory, as Employee of the Month, certainly a recognition deserved. And by the time we're done, we're all going to be doing stretching movements here from the DS.
God,
I
we
know.
need them up here.
So, okay.
Too tired already.
Stretching, yes.
Good morning. Do I have to lean in to talk, or can I guess I can stand back here. You might not recognize me without my Superman outfit on.
Oh.
Clark Kent today, so. Yeah, right. All right, so just a few words about Mallory. Over the past 2 years, Mallory's created an environment at the GT Bray Fitness Center that is uplifting and empowering to all those who participate. Her engaging personality makes all feel welcome. Her knowledge and skills provide the framework for individuals to be successful in meeting their fitness and health goals. Mallory truly exemplifies the Manatee County government ACE qualities. She works with and touches the lives of hundreds of people daily. Her willingness to go above and beyond in providing excellent customer service and having solution-oriented posture to any challenge puts her in the very special cohort of county employees. As we all know, the Employee of the Month award is only given to 12 county employees. All of these employees set the standard we all aspire to achieve. I am honored to be here to recognize Mallory as the Manatee County Employee of the Month for August. Thank you for all you do and continue to do. Oh, and her mom is here also, and she is Employee of the Month for Fit to Run of August as well.
Like your peers, other Employees of the Month, this plaque reads, Employee of the Month presented to Manatee County, from its Manatee County and its citizens to Mallory. I'm not going to make that for the last Cartonelli. No, not even close. Carto. In recognition of your outstanding performance, productivity, and dedicated service to Manatee County government. For those who excel, ultimately outshine their achievements, thank you for everything you do. Thank you, Mallory.
Yay.
Thank you, Mark.
Just say hey. Say hello.
Thank you. Jeff does most of the speaking for us, so.
Good job.
Congratulations, Mallory. Congratulations. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for keeping our residents healthy. It's a good thing.
I bet you're not this quiet in your classes.
Teaching.
Yeah,
That's my zone.
yeah, that's right.
All right, we'll go ahead and move to proclamations. Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Smith, second by Commissioner DeSabantino. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. All right, we will move forward. Commissioner Bustle? Hold on just a moment.
Our Susan,
Yes.
our
Or
yeah, Sharon and
drug-free?
everybody.
Yes, Drug-Free Youth Week.
Proclamation, Board of County Commissioners, Manatee County, Florida. Whereas the value of prevention and education is recognized as an important part of a balanced strategy to combat substance abuse. And whereas Manatee County youth know regular use of alcohol, cigarettes, and marijuana is harmful, of the Florida adolescents who have experienced a major depressive episode, only 31% received treatment. And Florida youth have been physically hurt on purpose by someone they were dating. And whereas students are often exposed to unhealthy choices that impact school success. And whereas Drug-Free Manatee, in partnership with the Manatee County School District, is sponsoring a symposium that provides prevention education about body image, nutrition, dating safety, internet safety, and drug use. And whereas our youth are one of Manatee County's most valuable resources and are worthy of our continued efforts to prevent youth risk behaviors, including substance abuse, and promote good health and wellness. And whereas no one agency or organization acting alone has the capacity to significantly impact the problem of substance abuse, now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Manatee County, Florida, that September 12th to the 18th, 2016, shall be known, designated, and set aside as Freshman Focus 2020, National Youth Leadership Initiative, and Drug-Free Youth Week in Manatee County, Florida. Adopted with a quorum present voting today, 23rd August 2016, and signed by our Chairman, Vanessa Ball. Congratulations.
Thank you. Manatee County Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition, known throughout the county as Drug-Free Manatee, appreciates the continuing support and the partnership of this board and all of the county administrators, departments, and staff in our collaborative efforts to provide a safe and healthy community for all residents. Many of the coalition's recent activities have focused on our response to the opioid, heroin, fentanyl overdose crisis. Last year, Drug-Free Manatee convened an Addiction Crisis Task Force, ACT, with members from every stakeholder group. ACT implemented numerous prevention, intervention, and treatment strategies and was recognized by the Manatee County Chamber of Commerce as a 2016 healthcare champion. I want to specifically acknowledge Manatee County government's drug-free workplace specialist, Tammy Langman, who worked with us to provide overdose prevention information and deterra disposal bags to all of the county employees in order to educate them about safe disposal. You have just received the 2016 indicator report. This is a summary analysis of our community data from school, health, crime, child welfare, etc., that impacts all of Manatee County. Drug-Free Manatee uses the data to drive our decision-making process and to identify evidence-based strategies to address real issues. Prevention is not based on guesswork or assumptions. And as a prevention-focused coalition, we believe that good decision-making skills are formed early. We promote and empower everyone in the county to make healthy lifestyle choices, especially our school-age children. The proclamation reads Drug-Free Youth Week, and it identifies 3 coalition initiatives. The first initiative is Freshman Focus 2020. It's a collaboration with the school district. We have created a health symposium at the Bradenton Area Convention Center for over 3,000 ninth grade students. The event will conveys a very important message to our children that the community values education. We want them to graduate in 2020. You can read about that about the freshman focus in the August Next Gen article that you've just received. The second initiative is NYLI, which is the National Youth Leadership Initiative. It's a 2-day training out at Day Springs by national trainers for students and advisors from every high school in the county. The goals are to develop leaders, give youth a voice in prevention, and have students design youth in action projects to take back to their schools. And the third initiative is DeFi, Drug-Free Youth, which celebrates the great majority of students in this county making healthy choices every single day. We will provide them with, or businesses in the community will provide them with discounts to celebrate those good choices. The project is built on a successful effort down in Northport and Sarasota. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Whitmore.
I sit on the Florida Medical Examiners Board.
Yes, ma'am.
And we just had our meeting last week, and unfortunately, District 12, which is Manatee, Sarasota, and DeSoto, we were #1 in the fentanyl overdose, heroin overdoses in the state. And I was looking at your reports here, and I think it goes, I think we really need to publicize this. I know I was going to call Blake this morning, and I just couldn't get around to get somebody that could actually give me the numbers real fast before this meeting, but I know at Manatee over 300 heroin overdoses just last month. And when I'm looking at your reports here, you said the amount of money spent on Narcan. Well, what's going around now, they're actually having to give 2 vials. So
Sometimes more.
Right, exactly. And so those numbers will probably reflect the next time you do it. But what I thought was interesting, and I didn't know this, and I should know it, the Good Samaritan Act regarding overdose victims, which are given limited immunity under Florida's Good Samaritan Act. This law protects people who acted in good faith to save a person's life from being charged with a simple possession. And these are people that are usually present when somebody's overdosing and they think they're going to go to jail or they're not going to help. I think we should really get the word out and do a campaign on this, because I didn't know about it, and I work in the hospital. So,
well, I'm really excited to tell you that one of the strategies I mentioned, we did prevention, intervention, and treatment strategies. One of the strategies was a Good Samaritan public service announcement that was produced by the coalition. And I'm not sure, Marib is here. Do you know how many people saw that?
It was on Bright House Networks, and
I saw it many times.
7% of all.
I think we just, maybe we should put it on our site, and we should
We
just
would
keep
love
it
to.
going.
It actually won an Addy Award, a regional award for the video, the PSA we produced.
I saw that commercial.
You-
But that was, did it say it was a Good Samaritan Act? It was, I did see that.
It is the Good Samaritan Act.
That's a wonderful commercial.
Thank you.
Actually. So anyway, unfortunately, we're still #1, and it's still going on right now as we speak. So anything we can do, I'm sure the board agrees, we'll help do whatever we can do.
Absolutely.
Appreciate the support.
Thank you.
Commissioner Benek.
Yeah, you all are doing a wonderful program. I've attended some of your events. I know that you've really got a wonderful group of kids that are focused on trying to make a difference in their schools. I've seen them in action. And we also happen to have Gary Tibbetts here from Vern Buchanan's office, and I know Vern is working very hard to try to bring funding to this area so that we can address this heroin crisis. You know, it's having a huge impact, as we see, on the number of kids that are being removed from homes and need to be placed in foster care. So it just, everything just keeps growing. The impacts keep growing, and they're going to be around for a long time. So, anything that we can do to work together to try to make a dent in this issue. And I just did want to bring that out while Gary was here. I didn't want to put him on the spot, but I do know that the congressman has made, pleas for help for us to get the funding that we need to be able to continue to work to stop this crisis. So Just want to say thank you if you want to.
Well, I just would also let you know that we have a meeting, our task force, Addiction Crisis Task Force meeting is Thursday in the Board of County Commissioners conference room, because you were using the fourth floor conference room. Representative Buchanan's office is there. They're going to be reporting on the CARA legislation, which is the federal legislation you're referring to. We also have somebody from the Department of Children and Families. There was a recent funding called Partnerships for Success, which is, I think, a $1.25 million a year effort for 5 years. And Manatee is actually identified in that funding. So that person, Amanda Mueller, who is the project director from DCF, will be part of our meeting and giving us the goals and objectives of that funding that starts in October. But Manatee is identified
Great.
because of the crisis we have.
Good, thank you. That's what happens when we work together. We get some
Thank you.
results.
Thank you.
Commissioner Chappie.
Yeah, what time is that meeting on the fourth floor?
That meeting is at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, I heard it on the radio this morning.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being
Keep
here,
up
y'all.
the good work. All right, moving right along, we'll go to citizens' comments on consideration for future agenda items. I do have one card. Tora Dennis, you'll have 3 minutes, please.
Ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Tara Dennis. I just want to be clear about why I came to the podium. I represent Samoset. I live there when it's flooding. I live there when it's dark because of inadequate street lights. I live there when you can't walk down the street because there's no sidewalks. I live there. In the last meeting that I attended, there was a question about transparency. I believe that I've been very transparent to my association by not bringing politics into their needs. There was also comments made about not attending our community meetings, which is perfectly fine, but just because you don't want to be in the same venue with me, isn't that shutting out other voters of District 2? Is not every voter of District 2 worthy of the county's time? Because of the fact that Commissioner Smith stated in the last meeting that I attended that he was choosing to handpick citizens of District 2 to meet with, is that not disenfranchising citizens of District 2, which makes for politics between him and any candidate running for District 2? Further, our community concerns that I bring up at any meeting are not new to the dais. Many of you sitting here have been working with Samoset for many years. It's not easy. We know that you can't redevelop without community engagement. Redevelopment takes money. You can't reinvest money if property values go down. Luckily, there are areas west of Samoset that have had property values rising, so subsequently that will help Samoset. In the last budget proposal meeting, it was said that the county does not have cash flow and that you're paying for infrastructure and capital improvement needs out of reserves. That seems to be a money management problem to me that needs to be looked at. On another note, for age 16 and 19 of Black millennials, 25% of them are unemployed, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So with that tax increase or tax referendum that's supposed to be approved by voters in November, what are we doing to address that problem? Are there initiatives for job opportunities for that sector? And more specifically, what are we doing to address the needs for District 2, which have a high concentration of unemployment? As a result of the Samoset Neighborhood Association, we have currently had portions of Samoset, the ditches and drains dug out and flushed, and this process will take about 2 to 3 months to complete. So that's progress. Again, I'm here to voice concerns of the community that me and my family live in and make it better. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, here we go. Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You want to wait?
No, I want him to respond. Get this over with.
You know, I've been doing everything I can in attempt to be professional and nice. To Miss Dennis, her husband, Demetri Dennis, who's a Republican candidate for 2018. Ma'am, you don't represent Samoset. I represent Samoset. I'm the only spokesperson for Samoset. The county administrator and I have been out there on numerous occasions. Why do you think those ditches are being dug? I've walked the streets. I've talked to quite a few people in that community. I have no responsibility to come to your meeting and allow you to facilitate a meeting for me. I host my own meetings. And by the way, I've had several meetings in that area. I sent your husband an invitation to the meeting. He didn't show up. Now let's deal with your husband for a minute, since you want to keep coming to the podium. If you want to get some facts, no, let me finish.
Well, let's
I
keep
never at all said anything
clean.
about, I didn't even send you an email. I didn't respond to anything that you sent to me. So I have no idea what you're talking about. Second of all, the facts are the facts. Everything you talk about, we've been doing that from day one. You have chose not to participate with what we're doing. You talking about the millennials? We had a conference at the Civic Center in Palmetto, did the millennials. I've said at least hundreds of times about lights, street lights. It's even on the referendum. So you choose to come up here continuously to deal with me. Now, respect go both ways. I've allowed you to do it several times, and you back up here. The fact is your husband betrayed me.
Okay, let's
Let me
keep the
finish.
pledge
No,
of public.
This is public comment. Transparency.
keep it clean.
No,
But
transparency is what
conduct.
it should be. Your husband reached out to me, and because the county will not hire him when he applied for several positions. Let's put it on the table now. I didn't want to deal with this.
Let's don't.
He chose to befriend me. When he didn't have 2 cents in his pocket, I took him next door and fed him. Your husband.
Okay.
Because the county would not hire him, he chose to run for 2018. Good luck. But I'm going to continue to represent Samoset. In fact, most of the people know about the meetings you have, will not participate. I will host my own meeting. I don't need an opponent wife to host the meeting for me. And so I want to get you straight with that. I commend you for everything that you're doing, but you have refused to work with me. In fact, when I was in Samoset, I talked to you and your husband's in New Jersey. So you know what we're doing down there. So let's keep it straight now. You want to continue to come to that podium, just keep the facts straight. I've allowed you to do it on several occasions, but it stops today.
All right, well, we're going to stop this because this is not a political forum here today. So I would appreciate it. Anything along that line should be in a political forum in the district, not here on this dais or to this meeting. So we're going to move forward. I don't have any other cards on future agenda items. Is there anyone else that would like to come and speak before this board? Not seeing anyone else, we'll close comments on future agenda items. We will now move to, is there any items to be pulled by commissioners off the agenda? Commissioner Whitmore.
Not to be pulled, I just wanted to bring up the item that we are talking about with Animal Services, the item number 26. Thank you to Manatee Community Foundation. They gave Animal Services $10,000 for spay and neuter. So I think we should at least say thank you because I know there's organizations throughout the community that do things like this don't get recognized. So thanks to them.
And if I could just comment on that? And the specific grant fund, the trust that provided that funding, and I read about it in the paper this morning, I can't remember the name, but that's who actually provided the funding, so I think it's a great thing. As we know, we have a significant overpopulation problem in the shelter, and this is something that folks need to take advantage of. If they think they don't have the resources, now we do have the resources to do the spay and neuter, so I hope people that are have dogs at home that need to be spayed and neuter will take advantage of this because we need to get the overpopulation under control.
Are there any items to be pulled from the consent agenda? I am going to bring up item number 23. I just have a question regarding it that I received from a constituent. We can wait. Is there anyone here?
Charlie would be the one.
I don't know where Charlie.
Yeah. Mike goes
Where?
back here.
Okay.
Oh,
I asked
okay.
him yesterday.
Just a quick question, Mike, if you could, just so the public is aware.
I've been doing this for years.
Well, there he is. Okay.
Morning, Commissioner.
Just, I just want to make it clear to the public as to why we are looking to purchase this property.
That piece of property is contingent to the park, and that is actually in the center line of the fork of the river there. So we had an opportunity to purchase it, and anything we can buy in that watershed just secures the long-term of that watershed. That it's a small piece, but it keeps that setback on that riverbank.
Pretty much clears it. Commissioner Benak?
Yeah, and I did ask the same question because I did see the question from Barbara Angelucci about, why we would be purchasing this. The map was a little bit unclear, but we went over it, and it is, in fact, contiguous with the rest of Duet Park. And as you said, it has a water course that runs through it that is a contributor to the watershed, correct?
That is correct. That's the main goal out of the utilities. We also was approached by Parks and Natural Resources and Public Works. That's right on a very hard blind bend there on that road. So owning that piece of property allows us to open up, cut that vegetation back along there where it makes that corner safer. We've had one fatality there on that corner already. So owning that will allow that. That culvert has been washed out 2 or 3 times due to high water, so it allows us to work in that area, but most importantly allows that setback from our water supply.
All right, thank you. That takes care of my question. Thank you, guys. Okay. Any other items from consent agenda, commissioners? All right, then we know that item number 25 has been deferred. Okay. At this time, I'll go ahead and open it up to public comment on consent agenda items. Is there anyone that would like to come forward and speak? This would be on items 8 through 30, except number 25 has been deferred. Okay, not seeing anyone, we are just moving forward today.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, a motion by Commissioner Smith, second by,
Chappie.
I'm sorry. what did I say?
Sabatino.
No, Whitmore.
Commissioner Chappie made the motion, second by Commissioner Whitmore. All in favor, say aye.
Yeah, me on your mind, that's what the problem is.
Well, I wonder why. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. It is approved unanimously. All right, moving along. We're still not even at our 10 o'clock. Wow,
Well, we're going to have long public comments. No.
I'm telling you.
Don't give any.
Commissioner comments.
Oh,
yeah, not gonna
advertise public hearings, right?
Yeah.
Or is that,
What
that's
else do we have next?
time certain?
Yeah, that's where I'm headed. All right, item number 32.
Cool.
Rabonia Neighborhood Action Plan.
That's time certain, though. huh?
Oh, it is, I'm sorry. You're right. Dag,
Did this agenda.
I know. All right, item number 33, no parking ordinance, 16-36, 71st Street Northwest. Saji.
Good morning, Commissioners. Saji Kami of Public Works.
Morning.
This item is a no parking ordinance, 16-36, and the action is requesting amending Section 2-22-22 of the Manatee County Code regulating the stopping, standing, or parking on rights-of-way to include 71st Street Northwest, providing for codification, severability, and an effective date. I have some additional information if you would like it, but the action requested is adoption of the ordinance.
All right, I don't see anyone on the board. I'll go ahead and open this to public comment. Anyone like to come forward on this item? Not seeing anyone, we'll close public comment.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, I'm going to get this right now. A motion by Commissioner Chappie, second by Commissioner Smith. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. It is approved unanimously. Moving right along. All right, Saji.
The next item is also a no parking ordinance, 16-37. The action requested is adoption of ordinance 16-37, amending section 2-22-22 of the Manatee County Code, regulating stopping, standing, or parking on rights-of-way to include 26th Avenue West, providing for codification, severability, and an effective date thereof. Again, have additional information if you would like it.
Again, no one's on the board, so I'll go to public comment. Would anyone like to come forward on this item? Not seeing anyone, we'll close public comment.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Chappie, second by Commissioner Smith. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. It is approved unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Saji. Wow, we are really, this is impressive. Item number 35, dashboard. Anything on the dashboard?
Edwin.
There's nothing specific. We provided for your information to get a sense of how things are going out in the field, and it looks like everything is moving along nicely.
All right, well,
Now we're back.
anyone from the public like to come forward on this item? Not seeing anyone, close public comment. Commissioner Bustle.
I just have a question. The PSCC data that we usually have is not here today.
Which data was that?
Sheriff.
Public service.
Oh, the sheriff? I'll have to, I've just got the word. She'll be sending it along to you.
Okay. I think it's very important to keep our finger on how many, what's happening in the jail and.
This is the
in
first one,
I think so.
Enforcement community.
last meeting.
All right, we'll go ahead and, item number 36 is time certain, so we'll go to item number 37, backflow prevention program update. And this is Mark?
And
Mike Gore?
Mike and Mark, M&M.
Mike and Mark? They told me it would be this evening when we heard this. Yeah, I thought so too. I'm surprised. That's what they kept saying to me too. I don't think it's evening.
Yeah, somebody told me this would come up this evening, so.
Yeah, good morning, and we thought this was going to be a little later, but I am Mark Simpson, the Water Division Manager for the County Utilities Department, for the record. Just wanted to take a brief minute to give a brief overview of the backflow prevention program, the status of that program. As you recall, at their last board meeting, a resident came up and had some comments and regarding the backflow enforcement practices that we employ. And in those comments, the county administrator had asked that we provide you a report on the status of the program. We provided that report on August 12th. And so I'm just going to highlight some of those things and open it to any questions that you have at that point. The backflow program, backflow prevention program, as it should be titled, is an important part of a regulation that is required by both federal, state laws.
If I can interrupt you, can you
Yes.
be a little closer to the microphone, please?
There you go.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
They can turn it up.
The backflow program and backflow prevention code was established by resolution in 1987 by resolution by the Board of County Commission. That resolution established the backflow code. It was enabled to keep us in compliance with state and federal regs that required backflow. Most of those backflow prevention activities, standards, processes are all defined by the American Water Works Association Standards Manual 14 for control of backflow prevention. That manual is incorporated by reference by all the state statutes and rules. So our program basically mirrors that program that's out there, prevention industry standard program. So since that time in '87, the backflow prevention program targets homes, businesses, all properties that have certain potential risks associated with them. Those potential risks are anything that are on the private side of the plumbing from getting into the water on the public side, and the public side preventing that cross-connection, cross-contamination. And primarily the distribution water system, the public water system is under pressure, providing pressure to the customers. If that pressure drops and there's a connection to another water source, water can flow backward, can be back siphoned in, it can flow backwards from a higher pressure, anything that has a higher pressure on the other side. So there's a couple different methods where that can occur, that backflow can occur. So a backflow prevention device actually is a device that goes between the county system, the public water system, and the private system, and or the water system of the customer of the parcel the property itself. And it's a pressure sensing device, and basically it makes sure that water on the county side is always higher than the pressure on the customer side. If the pressure on the customer side is higher than that, it does not allow that water to flow back into the county system, into the public system, and prevents possible contamination from going back into that system. Those events, cross connections, backflow events that occur, there are differences of opinion as to how frequent they occur and how dangerous they are. But we don't have the ability to make that decision. The rules say we have to have a program, and we have to provide that protection between those systems and our systems. Because you don't know when that potential incident will occur, and you don't know the effect, but the potential is there for it to be a very large effect. From past experience, there have been backflow events in Manatee County that have occurred in different locations, on places that didn't have a backflow preventer. And there have been people that have gotten sick, people that have been injured. Some of them have been in private systems behind a master meter, so our system was protected, but it still affected the people in that community. So those issues are out there, and it's a protection that, while a lot of people don't think it's needed, or they object to the cost that goes along with that, and having that system in place, it's been shown, not just across the country in different places, but here as well, that those incidents do occur, and you need to protect your system. So again, the ordinance, the resolution was in 1987. Throughout those years, we've had different groups of county government, both different departments and different sections and different departments, involved in the enforcement of that rule and putting that in place and moving it forward. In 2011, we came to the board with a presentation and a work session. We talked about the backflow program, and we talked about that we were in a situation where we had a large number of devices and a pretty high number that were non-compliant. These were devices that people had installed, people weren't testing them as per the annual testing requirement, refused to test them, refused to repair them when they got there. And then we also had several of our customers contact the board and make requests that the county change the program and take over the testing of those devices, and so that the customers wouldn't have to do that, because those devices, again, that's a separation between the county system and the customer system. The meter is where that occurs, and they're on the customer side of the meter. So those devices belong to the customer. And so, but they wanted to see if there was a way that the county could take that over and test their devices, so that they wouldn't have to contact a registered tester and get a certified tester and get that device tested every year, take that burden of managing their own device off of themselves and let the county do it. So we looked at all of that, and we came up with, looked at programs around the state, looked at programs close to us in different other areas of the state, looked at the way our program was set up, the circumstances and constrictions that were placed on it by the way our program was set up. We looked at all the programs out there, and there's a lot of different ways that people have attacked this issue, this backflow issue. Again, all public water supply systems in the state of Florida have to have a backflow prevention program. And there are certain standards that have to be met. Individual communities can be more strict than that if they wish, but they can't be less strict than the standard. And so they've approached it in different ways, a lot of different ways out there to look at it and to work through it. So we evaluated that for Manatee County, again, against the constraints that we had in place from original setup. We thought we had a process that might work. We shared that with you in the work session. But the first thing we needed to do, we shared with you, is because we had such a large percentage of non-compliant devices, was that we had to put what was our program that had been created by a resolution, put it into an ordinance, add some enforcement, some teeth to the enforcement policies that were in place, and let us clear up that backlog of non-compliant devices that we had. And so we did that, and we worked through that process with the county attorney. They developed the ordinance, several reviews back and forth, and went through it. And that ordinance was passed in 2013, went into effect January 1st of 2014. Since that time, the ordinance has allowed us to do what we initially intended, which was to make sure all devices that we had record of were in compliance. Now, I say all are in compliance, except for the small number that are currently due to be tested. So if you have, over 67,000 devices in our system, roughly 1/12 of those need to be tested each month. So, except for those ones that are due to be tested this month, they're out of compliance. They're not in that compliance level. So, but besides those that are in that compliance queue, everything else is in compliance. So we moved, greatly from where we were to where we are now. The second thing that we talked about in that workshop was that once that we get all of the ones that we know about in compliance, we're going to have to look and see if there are some things that we don't know about. A homeowner, a home that was built had a backflow device installed, but the contracting who put the backflow device in didn't record it in our system. We have some of those out there that we know about. We found some over the year. We think there might be some more of those out there. We have areas in the system where there'd be a home that doesn't have a device. We've seen this, and should have a device. We've seen this primarily from when we enforce our action. They get an annual notice, and they say, why do we have to test when my neighbor has the same situation and he doesn't have a device? How come? What's that situation? So we've seen some of those, and when we look out and we search, so we know that there are some places out there that should have a device that don't. And we told you that the next step would be for us to move a process of making sure to try to look for the ones that we don't. Now that process includes doing a survey of the grounds of the properties, going back and checking the records, building permits, and those kind of things. So that's the next step, and we're at that stage now where we can do that. The resident who came in 2 weeks ago at the board meeting, he was one of the residents in an area where this survey had been done. And this was in Sugar Mill Lakes Phase 1, as was explained in that meeting and in the memo status report that we presented. A customer in that community had a device. It was due for annual testing. She got the notice. She had actually removed her device because she didn't want to be compliant anymore. And we told her that, well, you need to put your device back in. You can't just unilaterally take your device out because, she said, well, my neighbor has the same situation I have, but he doesn't have a device. That's not fair. So we said, well, let's do a search. She goes, I want you to check everybody in here because if I have to do it, then they should have to do it too if they have the same requirements. So we did our survey of the area. We surveyed 87 homes in that phase. 48 of those homes were in compliance. Large number of those homes were in compliance. 38 were not. The gentleman that came in 2 weeks ago came in. He was one of the ones got the letter that said, "You're not in compliance. You need to have a device installed to be in compliance with the rule." There were 38 of those, and that letter went out to them on August 1st. I think they actually got it. August 1st was on the weekend, and they got it on the Friday before, but it was dated August 1st, and they gave them 60 days to install the device and be compliant with the device, to be compliant with the regulations. Since that time, to date, we have over 15 of the properties have either installed a device, of those 38 have either installed a device or have a contract to install a device, so people are moving toward compliance. As part of that process, we also had customers in Phase 1 who got the letter and said, well, if we have to be compliant, what about the people in Phase 2 and Phase 3?
Here we go.
So we did a survey of Phase 2 and Phase 3. There's 160 homes in Phase 2 and Phase 3. And of those, we had 24, I think, that were not in compliance. So you can see there's a much higher compliance level in Phase 2 and Phase 3 than there was in Phase 1. Of course, you talk about Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3, they were built out at different times and different situations occurred. So as to date, we have 87 properties that we sent out letters to from Phase 1. It was one of the questions the board had at that point. Those are the only letters that we sent out in this phase to work on this. Coming shortly will be Phase 2 and Phase 3 letters, the letters to those property owners that need to be in compliance. Trying to, again, our job is to enforce that ordinance that we have and enforce the policies that are in place. And so that'd be the next stage in there. I think that before we sent our letters to the homeowners in Phase 1, we did make attempts to contact, and we were successful in contacting their property management group for the common area in that phase. We also talked to the HOA representative and president, gave them all the information, shared them what was coming. This was in July. They had a board of directors meeting, HOA board of directors meeting, 21st of July, from what information we got. We were invited, we asked to attend if they needed us, if they wanted questions. They chose not to, so, but we had given them prior information, told them to let the residents know this was coming. And again, this was in July, and then the letter went out in August. And that date said they had, that letter on August 1st said they had 60 days to comply with the regulations. So that's where we are. That's the status. There has been several communications between the resident and the county, and from the county attorney's office weighing in on different issues and on this instance. But we were glad to answer any questions that you may have or any thoughts, entertain any thoughts about going forward.
Commissioner Whitmore.
Well, no matter what, our water, drinking water, public safety is number one. So we have to protect our water system, and we understand that. I know that the residents were given 60 days, and I think it was like $600 or $700 to put a backflow in. And I didn't know if you would consider, or whatever, maybe I know we can't do a time payment because that's a billing nightmare, but maybe just increasing it to like 120 days, because again, for some people on fixed incomes, not all, it is going to take a little while because the plumber's going to want his money right up front. And so they may have to do it on a charge card or something like that, or whatever. But I'm just, or maybe they're paying the county, I'm not sure. But if we could just maybe extend that until they could get it done and save up the money, I don't know. We did get a letter that from Steve Parisian. I know him well. He was my daughter's math teacher years ago. But he was saying that the islands had gotten their back closed for free years ago, and I was city commissioner then and mayor, and I don't ever remember that. So Mark and I talked about it yesterday, and this happened all over the county when the county required the water to be put in the front yards.
Correct.
Explain it, because it wasn't just the islands, it was Bayshore, it was everywhere in the whole county. But will you explain that so it's publicly on record, so people know exactly what that incident was years ago and when that was, approximately, just guesstimate.
Okay, so Mr. Parisian has sent a comment about another issue with another backflow outside of the Sugar Mill Lakes area. It's really a different issue.
That's different.
But to respond, one of the things he mentioned that his letter included that the county was installing all the backflows, had installed all the backflows on Anna Maria Islands and Holmes Beach. And as you said, that's not correct. When the Manatee County, our utility system has this, as part of the CIP program, we have a R&R program, and that R&R program includes replacing lines that are in older sections system, where the system is aged, whether the lines are too small for fire flow or they're just wearing out. And also when we do that, and also when lines that are on the back property line, some developments when they were put in, they put the water line on the back property line between two sets of houses, which prevents nightmares for us to get in there to do any kind of maintenance, to read meters, because all the meters would be on the back side of the property. So our standard is to have the water lines on the roads, in the right of way, and the meters at the right of way in the front of the house. So when we go in and we do these R&R projects, and it includes having to move a line from a back property line out to the front, in that case, then the homeowner would have to move their water meter, connection to their water meter, that currently it goes from their house to the back property line to where their meter is. They have to move it to the front property where the meter is now. And as part of that process, since we're the one making that change, we hire a plumber to go in and move that water line from connecting in the back to where the old water line was to where the new water line is, because it's not their doing that the water line location changed, it's because of us. So when they do that, if they have to move that water line, like move their service, the customer service line, that requires a plumbing permit. And so in accordance with the ordinance and resolutions out there that says that if a plumbing permit is pulled, then you have to be brought up to current code. If it requires a backflow, then the county puts the backflow in. If the water line, if the property doesn't include a situation that will require backflow, we don't put a backflow in. If the meter's not moved, we don't put a backflow in. But if we pull the permit, which is part of the code, then the plumber pulls the permit, then they have to bring it up to code, and so we pay for that. And that's not, and again, as you mentioned, that didn't happen just on the island. There were several streets on the island where some of that
Just a
occurred,
few.
but also in areas wherever we do that are in our projects, North County, East County, and western part of the county. Most of the older systems are in the western part of the county that we were attacked, but they're all over the county. So whenever that occurs, we do that.
And I understand, but again, it's public safety in water, and actually, I have a plumber coming out this week to inspect mine. I hate it just as much as everybody else. I know it's only $40, but it's $40, and, but, you know, got my notice, and unfortunately, got the plumber coming out to get it inspected, so, anyway, thanks.
Okay.
Commissioner Benek?
Yeah, and I was going to ask Mickey, because I have talked to Steve Parisian. He's been very concerned about his mother's, how it was handled. You know, he's brought up the issues about somebody having access to the property. And I wondered if, Mickey, if you might want to just comment, or Mark, you know, because there has to be access to the property to check out the backflow preventer. Mr. Parisian has indicated that also they're being singled out. If you might just want to comment on that. Or if you don't, tell me. It's up to you, Mickey. I mean, if there's a reason not to that I'm not aware of, you know.
You're asking me to comment on the singling out allegation,
Yes,
Commissioner?
the
Is that
singling out
correct?
allegation and the trespass allegation, because your staff has addressed this, but
Well,
since it's come up
let me address the
publicly-
easy, well, they're both relatively easy, frankly. You know, this county operates its utility system, both water and wastewater, pursuant to a special act of the legislature, specifically Chapter 63-1598, Laws of Florida. This county government, since 1963, has had the statutory authority. It's within the special act. I think it's Section 7. I'm picturing it in my mind. Has the statutory authority to enter upon private property in order to administer our system. The most classic example is the need to enter private property once a month to read the meter. No different than your electricity utility. Now, I understand we're moving into the days when, you know, they can read the meter from a distance with some kind of special device. But for time immemorial, it has been the case that in order for you to receive your monthly electric bill, the meter reader has to enter your property and read your meter. And so the concept is precisely the same here. The meters themselves are owned by county government. They occasionally go bad. They occasionally need to be repaired or upgraded. Once again, the county must have the authority to enter onto private property to effect the upgrades and the repairs. So, again, we have specific statutory authority to enter onto private property for those kinds of purposes. In terms of singling out of customers, I will try to recall my exact words in the email that I sent to this board last week.
Funk.
Your utilities department has neither the time nor the inclination to be singling out customers for disparate treatment. Any suggestion to the contrary is pure bunk. Does that answer your questions, Commissioner?
Yeah, And again, I mean, people have valid concerns. It is honestly a program that I think a lot of people don't think about, unfortunately. And where, you know, it might be, I understand some people's recommendation to have us totally run this program. But the fact of the matter is, as was explained to me, this is something that our private sector does a good job of taking care of. I mean, the plumbers know this business. They know how to install. They know how to check. We make sure that it gets done, but they're the ones that are responsible. Am I correct here, Mark? They're the ones that are responsible for actually doing the inspection, making the reports, you know, and it's not something that county government should take over, in my opinion. Maybe you want to comment on that, make sure I'm saying things correctly?
Yes, they are privately owned devices. They belong to the customer. It is if program is set up that if you have these risks or potential risks on your property, in order to receive water service, you have to have a backflow prevention device to prevent those potential risks from affecting the water supply. So it is a privately owned device. We assist in the record keeping. We have a website that the testers, approved certified testers, can enter the results on immediately if they have a laptop, or they can go back to the office on the day that they test the device and enter the data from that point. So it doesn't have to be a paper copy sent back and forth and trailed in. That has allowed us to, to operate the program with the small number of people that we do have for the large number of devices that are out there. Again, I told you there's over 67,000 devices attached to our system. So it's again, it is a private system, and the program does rely on the local plumbers who have the certified testers, and the fire marshals have certified testers for the commercial fire lines. So, we do rely on them to do their job, to meet our standards, to install it to our standards, to do the testing and the reporting to our standards. But they're an integral part of the compliance issue, the compliance process. If, in order, with 67,000 devices a year, if the county took over all those devices, it would require us hiring a multitude of testers. Like I said, there's over 100 testers registered that the customer can choose from that are commercial plumbers. We would have to hire a whole bunch of people to do it, or contract with a bunch of people to do it. And then, whenever the county gets into private business like that, there's always questions of, well, are we choosing somebody over another? Are we hurting somebody's ability to conduct their private business to do their work? So it is a process and a relationship that both teams have to function, both teams have to work toward to get it done. But they're in a part now where it's going fairly well. We continually educate the plumbers. The commercial plumbing groups change. They have turnover in staff. New people come in. We continue to educate them on an annual basis, spend time with them, do work sessions with them to make sure they're all aware of everything that's going on and what needs to be done in Manatee County, because Manatee County is a little different than Sarasota County, a little different than Pinellas County, a little different than Hillsborough County. Everybody has, as I mentioned, people have attacked this backflow prevention compliance issue program requirement in a little different way.
Okay. All right. I'm next on the board. It seems to me, I think you're right, that a lot of the public doesn't realize what it entails, what it's for, and what their responsibility is. So perhaps we need to, maybe do a PSA or something to try and get the education out there for the people so that they realize what this is all about and what their responsibility is. And, as far as the county taking that over, I wouldn't want to see that. I mean, I think we should have limited government and leave the private sector out there to do the work that they're doing. So I think we're doing a great job. Personally, I just want you guys to know that. It's amazing to me. I mean, I know I have forgotten, my husband and I have forgotten about it, and counties come and said, you better get this done or we're going to come out and charge you for doing it. And I think you did. So, you know, it is one of the things that every resident has to abide by that owns a home and gets water. So it needs to be done. Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, when I had my briefing with you and Mr. Gore, you know, one of the concerns I had is the fact, I know you said you went to the association meeting and you informed the association concerning this issue. I believe you said you sent letters to every resident. Did you do that?
Yes, we contacted the association president and the property management group for that phase one. We did not attend the HOA meeting. We offered to attend. They chose not to have us attend. But we did provide them with all the information as to what was going to occur. When the letters were going to come out, they were coming out on the 1st. We told them they were going to come out on the 1st, and that we had 38 homes that were in a non-compliant status, that their residents were going to see this letter, and we encouraged them to let them know that this was coming, and that we should, if they could, they should group together and get a lower price from a private plumber group to do the work.
Idea.
But my question is, you did send letters out to the individual
Yes,
homes.
each individual homeowner got a letter.
Okay.
Everybody in the phase got a letter.
And I think you said that someone actually lodged a complaint and brought this to your attention, and this is how we got involved in it.
Yes, that was a complaint from last year.
So we was not aware that they didn't have this situation under control.
That's correct.
Okay, Manatee County is still, even though we talk about the private sector, you are the oversight of this, correct? We wouldn't be here if you wasn't.
Mike's department.
Be here if I wasn't. So, yes, we have, the way the utilities department is currently set up, yes, we have the oversight of these devices in this program.
So if you wouldn't have received that complaint, we still wouldn't have been aware of this.
Probably.
And I'm asking this because, you know, when I was asking,
Perhaps not at this time. As I indicated that, you know, our first, from when the ordinance was passed, and we had to clear up the backlog of issues that we had with the devices we had in our system, clear up that backlog. The next phase of this is to go and look for areas like Sugar Mill Lakes 1, phase 1, where there's possible issues. Would they have been the first ones on the list? I can't say that for sure. We would have to go out and come up with a program to see where we're going to target. And typically, the plumbers, like I said, we work closely, plumbers, we rely on the plumbers to do, you know, they do the majority of the testing of those devices in the system. And they'll report to us that, hey, there's a device here that I've seen, there's no tag on it, it's not in your system. Or they'll say, I tested this device, but the one right next door, there wasn't a device on it. So we get information from them. So we would take tips from the people that are out there doing the testing, from our own folks that survey and we have compliance officers that have to go out and spot check areas from that situation, or from complaints. But that's the next phase. So this is the first part of the next phase.
so when you deal with the situation of, these are private companies, do we have an idea of what the lower end, what they can charge, and what the max end they can charge for any person that want to put this in?
It's between 20.
It's a business decision by the companies. I think that we have seen that in Sugar Mill Lakes Phase 1, that we've seen devices that have been put in for around $420 to $440 in that range, and maybe higher. I've heard that there have been quotes of $600 to $900 as well. It depends on what company they go with, I guess.
You get into my question, with such a large issue, it seems to me that this is the private sector. We have many vendors in Manatee County government. So I, as a plumber, I can arbitrarily charge someone $400 and another one $12. We don't have any say-so on that. That's correct, right?
That's correct.
Okay. It seems to me that Manatee County, if it's $20 or $50, will have designated plumber vendors who's registered with us, so we'll know what they charge. they're still in the private sector because there's a lot of people out there take advantage of people. And if it's going to be unified on the same amount, it should be evenly. So what we have a system set up where a plumber can charge one person $800, the other one $200. Seems to me we will have a list of 10 vendors that does this for us, that we can say this is what the fee is, and can keep us informed on what they're doing. That's what I'm having trouble with, to be honest with you. It was a good presentation that you gave me, but my concern was arbitrarily the fact that the private business can charge whatever they want, and we don't have designated vendors that we have on our list where they can call this certain one, we know whether it's $600 or $800 or whatever it may be. And I agree with Commissioner Whitmore also of the fact that I think we need to extend the time. I mentioned to you about summer credit card shark. People coming off the summer done maxed them credit cards out for traveling, and now they get this bill in there. And so they call one plumber and they say $800. They call another plumber, they say $600 for the same work. That's what I'm having trouble with. I think we can stay at the private sector, but I think a county this size should have vendors that you interview, and these are the only one can do it if it's our water, our backflow. I don't think we should have people out there charging arbitrarily based on where a person lives, what they do, 112, 400. I mean, that's my concern. And I agree with Commissioner Whitman, as I just stated that. We need to have an extended time on that. If you call someone, all of a sudden they got to spend $500 or $600 or $800 based on who they call. So they got to shop around and get a fee that they can pay. Everyone should be qualified to do the same work. With so many different backflows in Manatee County, I'm stunned that we don't have that in place. A vendors list for people who do it, and we know what they're charging our residents. And so that's what my concern is. I understand we got to protect our water. I get that. I understand that we need to move forward. I think it'll be better controlled and understanding that a complaint wouldn't have to bring this to our attention. If someone that can deal with us, we may need to get into the point where everyone is not going to be fair out there. We're going to continue to build houses, and more people are going to need this. I can see it being very abused. That's what my concern is, especially with the elderly. It's almost like somebody building something on a house and just take someone's money. That's what my concern is. It won't come forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, just a couple quick things. We have a time certain that we're running late on. But I just wanted to make a quick comment, and then I think it'd be appropriate to switch to Mickey. He had a comment about some of what you were saying. All these plumbers are registered and licensed through the state. They all have to be qualified, and if there's problems with gouging or bad work, then it would be a matter of reporting them. But I think it would be more appropriate right now to go to Mickey to comment on some of this, because I saw you push your button pretty quick.
Then we need to go to public comment.
And
Thank you.
Kate, you're welcome to weigh in at any point here as well. That's Assistant County Attorney Kate Zamboni. First of all, in terms of established lists, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, we do have an established list of pre-approved plumbers that do the annual inspections, correct?
That is correct. They
All
have to be
right.
certified.
Well, I asked that question. I mean,
Okay.
Hold on.
He's got the floor, Commissioner.
Hold on. First of all, for the moment, we're talking about annual inspections that are required once the device has been installed. We do have a list of pre-approved plumbers that have been appropriately trained to do the testing, correct?
That's correct.
And so when I go to do my annual testing, I go to that list of pre-approved plumbers that I can get from the county, correct?
That's correct.
And I call as many plumbers on that list as I want to try to get competitive pricing for my annual testing, correct?
That is correct.
All right. Now, that's the testing side of things. And by the way, there is strength in numbers. I think of my own homeowners association. My HOA does the testing for my entire neighborhood every year, okay? So they bargain for a bargain basement rate. When that plumber comes out, okay, and his per unit price is much lower since he's doing everybody in my neighborhood, my HOA contracts with him or her on an annual basis, and then my HOA passes that bill along to me and I pay it. So, those neighborhoods that have HOAs, I would urge them to do what my neighborhood does. Okay, that's for annual testing purposes. So we're going to move beyond annual testing for the next portion of our commentary or our discussion here. The next portion of our discussion deals with initial installation of these devices. Okay? Initial installation, since they are privately owned devices, is up to the customer, correct? They choose their plumber, and the only requirement is that it be a licensed plumber, correct?
That's correct.
No pre-approved list from the county, simply that they be a licensed plumber.
Correct, and then install it to the county standards.
And install it to the county standards. So again, they can call as many plumbers as they want and get competitive pricing when it comes to the initial installation. And so where do you draw the line if the county is going to inject itself in this process? Are we also going to say, well, you know, the county will seek out the best priced plumber for the installation of your line into your home? You know, and so it is a free marketplace for any homeowner when he or she initially builds their home, or when he or she has built their home and after the fact is required to install a backflow prevention device, to go into the marketplace and try to find the cheapest plumber. I mean, that's the way the free market system works. And so, again, this is a privately owned device. Just like the lines that are in the ground on the backside of the meter, those are privately owned. The homeowner chooses his or her own plumber to do that work. And in my mind, that makes perfectly good sense. Respectfully.
Commissioner Smith.
That's all we want.
Well, I agree with everything he has stated. The facts are, though, that state does not regulate fees. You have people who, since this is a local issue, the fee is not in the statute dealing with this issue. Because you have a plumbing license, it's not saying you shall not charge this fee. For example, insurance is a certain fee in statute. You can charge a premium, and that's all you can charge, what I'm saying. I'm saying as we move forward with, it's still a private-public partnership. We're not telling them what to do, but I can see this actually being abused as we continue to grow and develop. And it may be now, I don't know. I know information. That's why I was asking you the questions, what I asked from that standpoint. You have people who have license who build, and we have people who try to build and don't have a license. We've been dealing with that, and we put in an ordinance to deal with that. So my concern is what Commissioner Whitmore has stated. I think that I understand we have to do something about this issue. My concern is like hers, that I think it should be more than 60 days. You will find out that these questions with the association, I did ask that question, why didn't the association get involved with this? And they didn't want to be involved with this. So every association may not want to take this on. I know in particular this association did not. I spoke to the resident, wanted to be involved with this situation. It became an individual thing. So based on the association, who they may not want to have any involvement with it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, I don't have anyone else on the board. I'm going to open this to public comment. I do have one card, Kenneth Piper. If you'd like to come up, sir, and you'll have 3 minutes.
She asked me, you know, when can you speak? And I said,
Good morning. My name's Ken Piper. My wife and I own the property at 3208 48th Street East in Palmetto. We totally lost sight of what the real issue is in this case. In the law, they have a saying, or attorneys have a saying, if you got the facts on your side, pound on the facts. If you got the law on your side, pound on the law. And if you don't have the law or the facts on your side, you pound on the table. And that's what we've been doing this morning. I got an email from Mr. Simpson on August 18th. My response was an email to all of the county commissioners on August 22nd, and I do have a copy for the record. Mr. Simpson conceded in the email that my particular property has no cross-connection whatsoever to the public water supply. Nonetheless, the inquiry should end there, but it doesn't. He wants to regulate the potential for cross-connection, and I have no idea what that means. I think it means if you're thinking about a cross-connection, then he's going to require a backflow meter. So he places himself in the position of being the thought police, and that's what this is all about. The state of Florida enabling rule does not permit the regulation of a potential cross-connection. Again, whatever that word potential means. Florida Administrative Code Rule 62-550.200 defines cross-connection as any physical arrangement between the public water supply and any other water supply. I have no other water supply on my property that has a physical connection. I dare say that the other 37 people in my subdivision that got these letters are probably in the exact same situation. That letter of August 1st that originally came from the Utilities Department, I cannot imagine anything more arbitrary than what that thing was. Mr. Simpson acknowledged in his email on August 18th that the letter makes no findings of a cross-connection. But he says the utilities thought it was that if there was no cross-connection, the property owners would then come to the utilities department and tell them that. That's not the way government's supposed to work. You're supposed to make your findings first, and then the citizen gets to respond. They make no findings. They just simply send a letter out threatening to shut off your water supply, and then you're supposed to go to them with your hat in your hand and explain why there is no cross connection. And when you do that, you get the treatment that I've gotten here. We explain the history and what a wonderful thing it is to protect our water supply, and it is a good thing to protect the water supply, but the problem is there is no cross connection here. There never was one, and probably most of the people in Phase 1 of Sugar Mill Lakes don't have that cross connection either. I wish that the county commissioners would show some leadership on this issue, and you guys talk about leadership.
Mr. Piper, you're going to have to finish up, sir.
Well, they had 40 minutes to speak, so I'd like 4.
No, we got 3.
Well, 4 minutes.
It's over 3 now. Keep going.
You've probably got about 30 seconds of that left, of 4 minutes.
I think the commissioners need to take some action to clarify that the present ordinance, 13-35, does not apply to potential connections. It only applies to actual connections, as is stated in the state's enabling rule. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public like to come forward on this item? Not seeing anyone, we'll close public comment on this. Commissioner Bussell.
I'll wait. I'd like to hear the staff response. I have a comment on what some of the allegations that were made, but.
Commissioner Benak?
Yeah, I need to know, what is this potential connection that we are requiring a device for? I'm a little confused by the potential connection and versus an actual connection, because it does seem to be a valid point. So can you please explain?
Commissioners, my name is Kate Zamboni in the County Attorney's Office. I'm going to let Mark respond to most of what was said, but I did want to make the point that Mr. Piper made a number of allegations about Mr. Simpson's decisions or Mr. Simpson wanting to do X, Y, and Z. This is not a personal vendetta by Mr. Simpson. He is simply enforcing the county's ordinance, one that this commission approved. And the potential exists anytime there is generally an auxiliary water supply, and our ordinance specifically defines a swimming pool as an auxiliary water supply. Mr. Piper's property has a swimming pool. That is the potential that exists, and that is what is triggering the requirement in this case.
Well, if I could just respond to that. So there is a swimming pool. It's not potential. A swimming pool is a connection. Or am I mean, this is a point of law, so there's a swimming pool. How can it not be connected? I don't know.
That is a potential. We live in a do-it-yourself world. Mr. Piper concedes that you have to prove that there is a connection. What we're trying to prevent is the potential connection. All those sources, a pool, a pond, solar, we can't monitor what people do in their homes, what they do. They go to Home Depot, they do their plumbing, they do their irrigation systems, anything like that can happen. There's no way we can guard against that and go look at that. We've deemed these items that demand a backflow preventer because the potential exists for them to do something that would cause a backflow. And I take exception to how bad Mark was treated here. These folks have worked very hard to get this program off its feet and running. It is not our desire to turn people's water off. This is something we agreed to. The board approved this. This is a state statute. There is no way we can follow and go look at homes and see what they've done in their backyard, between their pools, between their sprinklers. This is our drinking water we're talking about protecting, that everybody drinks. This is the best safety method to go for.
Okay, if I could continue. So I want to make sure I
Please, hurry,
understand.
we do have a time certain.
The
We're late.
potential is because you have a pool and you might put a hose in it and you might fill your pool up, which we have done. I have a pool. You might have the water come back through that hose into it. So it is an interpretation of the law that a pool is a potential connection, therefore is subject to this. I just want to make sure I understand.
I don't even think it's an interpretation. Our ordinance spells that out.
Specific.
It is
Yes, it
specific. It
calls
says
that
a
out
pool
specifically.
is a potential connection, therefore, as a potential connection, you have to have a backflow preventer if you have a pool.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That's what I thought. Commissioner Chappie?
Yeah, I just, the list of potential areas, flood zone, on the water, reclaimed irrigation, irrigation and a pool, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not finished. I'm going to hurt you. Commissioner Benek?
Yeah, and we're asked to take a leadership position, and I appreciate that. That is our job up here. This has been a very difficult ordinance for people to understand, for people to accept. But our leadership position is to enforce the protections of
our
Lake
water.
Manatee, of our water supply. Everyone else does this in terms of having protection for their water supply. It's mandated by law, we've been told by our people. For us to say now that it doesn't apply to pools because you might not, that's too big of a risk. That is the risk we would be taking. We would be saying if it doesn't apply to your pool, it doesn't apply to anybody's pool. We now are going to accept that anyone can have a pool and anyone could stick a hose in it and anyone could have the water flow back. Well, you want me to take a leadership position? I'm not willing to risk the Manatee County water supply by now taking a pool out of the equation, which I think I understand is what you're asking because that was what was explained to me. If it's otherwise, we probably need to have a discussion. But I'm not willing to say a pool because it's a potential connection, therefore is not subject to that because we would be opening up our water supply to risk. So that's my position on it if I'm understanding the question we're being asked here.
Commissioner Smith? No, sir, you cannot.
You and I'd have to have a one-on-one conversation, which we can have, and I'd be willing to do.
Commissioner Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I had this conversation, and I don't think that's what he's attempting to do. I think he's more concerned about the ones that can't afford to pay in the time frame, and also.
That's a different issue.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the issues, and the procedure that took place. And certainly, we in government can. I'm not criticizing staff, but we always can do better, even as commissioners. And I know when I met with him and his wife in my office, he was concerned about the procedure and what actually took place from that standpoint. And to be fair with him, he's concerned about his neighbors that may not have the money. And I like that. I mean, this is in my district, District 2. I've been to his house before on some other issues, but I applaud him for looking out for his other people that may not be fortunate. And that 60-day notice, well thought out to me through him and his wife, kind of scares certain people who may be on fixed incomes coming back from the summer. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Whitmore?
I think we should stay the course, but I would ask that the board or the staff look at extending it because I'm more worried about the financial, I don't have charge cards, and I'm sure some of the elderly don't either. some can pay it, some can't, but I mean, I'm not asking for time payments, because I understand, we talked about that yesterday, and we'd have to hire people to do it, I totally get that, but instead of 60 days, if we could make it 90 or 120 days, so they could get their money together to pay whatever your fee was, or the fee is to install it. So they can get it
The
installed.
money is paid to a private plumber
That's what I
to
meant.
install the
I
device.
know, but then give them 120 days to prove to you that they had it done.
And we certainly can do that. The idea this morning to get with you folks and explain the program and all that this staff has went through, this is really the first time anybody's come to y'all with this. We started out with 30 days notice, and we got some feedback that was tight timing. So we pushed it out to 60. We certainly can push it to 90 or 120 if that's what the board desires to help folks. But most people come, this is the first time we've been in front of y'all with anything like this. Most people, we've been telling 60 days. We've brought a lot of people into compliance. We put a lot of devices in. So if 90 or 120, if we walk out of here with that certainly is doable. Whatever the board feels, I would like to nail that date down if possible.
All right, Commissioners, we have 2 time certains. We are 30 minutes late on the first one, so we need to move forward. Does anyone want to make a motion on this? Am I hearing anything here?
I don't think we have a motion, but I'll make a motion to proceed, per our ordinance, but extend the timeframe on the properties that we're working on to 120 days to show documentation that they've complied with our ordinance.
From what date?
From now, today, I guess, if that's okay with you. Okay, 120
I'll
from
second
today.
that motion, Madam Chair.
All right, so we have a motion by Commissioner Whitmore, a second by Commissioner Smith. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Nay.
Okay, it is a 6-1 vote. Commissioner Smith, and knowing that we need to move forward, sir, is there anything you'd like to add quickly?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the commission for doing that, because remember, this was being undone for several years. It was 2014 we were supposed to be addressing this, so I don't think that period what we're doing will bring much harm. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I could ask a practical question, Mike, I would assume that the direction that you've just been given by this board will require a fresh new round of letters, correct? With a fresh new 120-day period commencing?
Right.
Yeah,
I'm not sure practically that there's any other
No, right.
practical, efficient way to do it other than to send a fresh new round of letters,
Or call them,
Allowing 120 from
allowing
today?
120 days.
as of today, from today.
Okay.
Well,
Yes, sir.
but,
Bail out of it.
Otherwise, how are you going to communicate with the folks that have already received letters
Right.
saying, okay, your period has now been extended? I'm trying to think about the practical side of things.
I would believe, and I have staff here to echo if I'm wrong, that we would have a record of where everybody's at. The
Right.
staff is due diligent, that we would know where everybody's at, and those that haven't complied, if they needed the extension to get to 120 days from the original letter, I would prefer to do it that way,
Thank you, do it however you want.
but
Right.
In other words, okay.
He knows.
I,
they gotta
Mickey,
let-
I'm injecting
if I'm
myself too
wrong,
much
then
into the- No.
if I'm,
I was just trying to be helpful.
it was a decision by the utilities originally. It's not something that the board weighed in on when we was setting this up, and it was our decision to go to 60. That's why I feel comfortable saying we can go to 120. We've got 15 folks that have already complied, working within that time frame, and that's why I would like to just extend what's left from that 60-day letter.
That's fine, sure.
I think
Thank
that's
you.
appropriate. Commissioner DiSabantino.
And I want to thank you for the briefing yesterday and taking the line of fire. We're in the line of fire up here. But it probably should have been disclosed to us from the get-go that there is a pool involved.
Yeah, I didn't know.
And maybe reclaimed water or some kind of sprinkler system. But perhaps, Mr. Gore is very knowledgeable and, not Gore, Parisian?
No, that's Ken.
The other one?
Piper.
I forgot, Ken Piper, yeah. I
Piper,
just know it's
sorry. Can help organize the remainder of the people who haven't been able to accomplish it and get a group rate, and you can all
Sure.
organize that and get a better rate for everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to put in just a notation on something that you just made the comment to. I knew there was a pool. I mean, we went over it in my briefing. I knew it. It wasn't, we all had briefings,
We did,
correct?
I meant on camera today. It should
Oh,
have just been said out front that there was a pool, and that would have kind of stopped a lot of this.
Well, I just want to make sure, I mean, you know, the staff yesterday was very thorough, at least in my briefing, they were. Commissioner Benak?
Yeah, but I was confused by the potential word, so I wanted to clarify it. That was the point the gentleman was making. So yes, I had a briefing. Yes, we understood about the pool, but it is an interpretive question about whether that is potential in the law. That was what he was asking, and we got our staff's recommendation, we voted. But I do have a problem with voting very quickly to change a procedure
Right.
to go to from 60 to 120 days. What does that even mean? We didn't really discuss what it meant. So I appreciate the clarification, because the fact of the matter is you have been giving longer in many cases.
Yes, in many cases.
It's just like code enforcement. You want compliance, and if people are telling you, oh my gosh, I just, contracted with this plumber, and I've got to pay them by this time, in reality, they've been giving longer. So now we've given direction. We don't have to change an ordinance.
No.
But the fact of the matter is you have been giving longer. That's what you told me yesterday in my briefing.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
that's why I didn't vote against it. But we got to be careful when we make these decisions like that without having a lot of discussion. That's all I'm going
I
to say
think
about
this will
that.
be helpful
Had a
to
lot of
utilities, only because
Not
now
on
there
what it
is.
meant. Not on what it
Commissioners,
meant.
let's not talk over each other, please. I think it will be helpful to you because now you do have an absolute time, 120 days, to move forward. So,
Thank you.
good leadership.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bustle.
I'd like to echo what my colleague Betsy said about hasty decisions. This is a prime example of Dias engineering. It truly is, because why do we know better than the staff how many days to give somebody to comply? Human nature says that if you give me 120 days, I'll probably take that 120 days. It just doesn't make sense.
I agree with that comment, other than staff told us that they were okay with that. So, Commissioner DeSabantino.
Send it to us.
And
Madam Chair.
I'm agreeing with Commissioner Bustle and Commissioner Benak on this one. I know that they're concerned about setting a precedent about automatically going to 120 days, and that's not the case. So I don't know if we actually really need a vote to do that, because that kind of sets the stage for others. So I'm just deferring to you for your.
If I could, Mr. Salvatino, we appreciate y'all's support. This is not an easy program to administer. We're down to that group that they're going to get blindsided, because their neighbor spotted it or whatever. And we're down to the finite end of it, and we can work either way.
Okay. I just don't want to set.
We start out with phone calls. This staff, once a customer pushes out to the 60 days, as long as they tell us, I've called the plumber. Sometimes the plumber could take 2 or 3 weeks to get it scheduled to actually come do the work. This staff works with them. We extend past that 60, long as we see that effort that they're taking to do it. So this staff is accustomed to working with that, and we can certainly accommodate the 120.
All right, thank you. I don't have anyone else on the board, so I think we're ready to move forward.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go now to our 2 time certains, and I'm going to take a 5-minute break before we start on item number 36. Right. There we go. All right, we're going to item number 36, results first nonprofit agency contracting. Sherry.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the board. Sherry Corrier, Director of Neighborhood and Community Services. Good morning. I'd like to introduce to you Hal Williams, Outcome Guide. He is going to present to you our initial first phase of a prototype group where we are going to be attempting to put together a results first and investor-based contracting method moving forward. And since I know your time's tight this morning, I'm going to go ahead and let Hal come forward. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair,
Morning.
Commissioners, Mr. Ed.
Mr. Ed. Uh-oh.
We know each other. I've been engaged by the county to work with you all on a journey that'll take a couple of years, and it's really designed to answer this question. And I think you have my PowerPoint if you wanted to take a look at it or take any notes as we go along. And the question is, what difference have we made? Tom Bodine did an ad for, I think it was Motel 6 years ago. Do you remember that? A storyteller, and he ends the ad saying, "We're Motel 6 and we'll leave the light on for you."
Yeah, I remember.
Well, Manatee County is leaving the light on. It's turning on the lights, and you know how many hours they're on. For social and human services, you can even go to the point of saying how many people came in the door. You can talk about how many people sat in their seat and dutifully went through the workshop or the computer training or the mentoring or the preschool education or the homeless counseling or anything else. But what you can't really say is the answer to the question, so what? So they got these services. How many of them got better? So I'd like to talk with you this morning about Results First, which is your name for that journey. The starting point of it is the distinction between being a funder and an investor. So we'll talk about that for a minute. We'll talk about how nonprofits approach this. Then we'll talk about Result First language, the words we're using, prototyping, as Sherry mentioned, and the full program. Next slide, please, Susan. When I work with counties, with cities, with foundations, and incidentally, I've had the privilege of working with American Express, Prudential, MasterCard, Starwood. I work with Bill Gates Sr. at the Gates Foundation on their Northwest programs. My starting point is always the same. What business are you in? And a lot of foundations and a lot of counties and a lot of cities say when they're in these philanthropic areas, well, we're in the distribution business. We distribute money. We're a funder of programs. Thankfully, there's a different answer available. We're not a funder of programs. We're in the human gain business. The business we're in is not distribution of money. It's not grant making. It's not contract giving. It's creating the maximum human gain for the dollars available. And it turns out that's a very different mindset. Call your attention on this slide to just two of the items. The first is that the funder gets and grades a proposal. If the federal government, it gives so many points for the needs statement, so many points for the work plan and the like. So we once asked friends and one of our clients, the Annie Casey Foundation, and folks at the Ford Foundation to take a look at a bunch of projects where they knew two things at the end of the day. They knew what grade to give the proposal that they'd originally received. It was either lousy proposal, just good enough to get the money, great proposal, or something in the middle. And where they also knew the results. Real fizzle, great results, something in the middle. The Annie Casey Foundation hired a graduate student to do a test for significance on the relationship between the grade given the proposal and the grade given project results. There wasn't any. There is, of course, a relationship between the presence of an agency's grants writer and a beautifully written proposal. But if you're looking for results for human beings, it turns out that the proposal is a mighty thin reed.
Okay.
So the investor, which is you, says, we really don't want to get and grade a proposal. What we want to do is to get answers to these three questions you see on the right. What are we buying? What are the chances we'll get it? And given all the opportunities before us, is this the best possible use of our money? So that's the journey. What are we buying means that there has to be crystal clear questions about what are you going to pull off for the people you serve? You can no longer tell us about the services. The question is, what results from the services? What are the chances we're going to get it? Now, historically, the funder has looked at things like evidence-based models, all kinds of characteristics of detail of work plan, and the like. My friend Bob Galoth at Annie E. Casey Foundation came back at me after we did this exercise relating proposals to results, and he said, I'm glad that you asked that, because then we ask ourselves this question. If a bad proposal didn't explain bad results for a project, what did? And he said, we did quite a poll, and these tended to be fairly major projects, which is why they knew those two things about them. And he said there was actually just one answer that covered about 90% of the projects that fizzled. About 90%. What was it? I asked. Listen up, this is very complicated. The person on whom we bet left. Isn't that interesting? We put all this emphasis into the things that are kind of mechanically proficient and in compliance, and it turns out that the mettle of the human being who was in charge of that program, its stem winder, its spark plug, proved to be as important or more so than all of those other factors put together. We also, incidentally, see that dramatically when we work with agencies and nonprofits around the country, and it doesn't really matter what the area. Let's take early learning, and we all focus on, well, is this Head Start proficient? Is this preschool proficient? If we go into another area, is this youth violence prevention program proficient? The 12-session anger management, is it covering all the bases? Well, it turns out there's incredible variation within these programs between individuals. In Seattle, which I mentioned, we actually used a data system to track not just to the level of the Head Start or the other provider of preschool, but down to the level of the individual teacher. And it turns out there's unbelievable variation among teachers. So if we could the good news is, in any Head Start, in any of the programs in which you invest, if the agency or nonprofit could simply get all of its staff up to the level of its highest performers, the difference would be astonishing. So the personal element in terms of chances that we'll get a result, it's not just who's the leader of the organization. From the viewpoint of the participant, it's who's working with me. They don't care about the logic model of the organization. What they care about is, does this individual engage me and get me rolling in a way that leads me to want to help myself? The reality is that in any program in which you invest, you're totally dependent, not simply on the nonprofit or the agency that's, quote, delivering the service. You're dependent on the individual getting that service to get some kind of level of engagement. A nonprofit cannot force any kid to be on grade level. A nonprofit cannot force anybody to go into a transitional home. The person has to want to do that for themselves. So the best programs have individuals who spark that level of engagement and follow-up. Okay, the last one on the funder versus investor. The funder spends most of their time at the front end making grants. I asked Bill Gates Sr., all stories told with permission of the client, I asked him once how much time they spend at the back end when a project is over. And he said virtually none. We just move on to making our next grants. Well, how would it be if I was in charge of your pension money, your retirement? And I said to you, well, we're gathered here today, ladies and gents, and we had such a great time investing your personal money last year. We looked at the annual reports, e.g. proposals, and some of them brought a tear to our eye. They were so well written. You couldn't believe the mission statement of a few of these organizations. And so we distributed the money among them. And remember, we just had a wonderful time doing that, so we did it again. And you're going to say, by the way, Hal, did you stop to ask how they did last year before you made another investment in them? Oh, no, we didn't have time for that. Of course we need time for that, which is what the investor does. The investor says, There are two predictors, core predictors of what an agency will achieve. The first one is, what did it do last year? Why would I look at all the flowery language it has about what it's going to do next year when I have available what it actually accomplished for people in need last year? Past results, biggest single predictor of future gain. And the second one I've mentioned is, who are the individuals, especially those on the shop floor, that are directly interacting with participants. Next slide, Ms. Susan. It's important to keep in mind the nonprofit or agency view in all of this. I mentioned that the county is really dependent on these agencies in many of the social and human services areas in which you invest. And one of the first things we don't want to do is demoralize them. Because it turns out that human energy, net positive human energy, is probably the greatest single predictor of success of human beings or organizations. You can't, you're in many of your instances, including the one I just heard on the water issues, you're often in the business of compliance. In grant making, funders are in the business of compliance. Did the proposal not go beyond 10 pages? Was everything spelled right? Was everything in the right column? Logic models are in the business of compliance. Did everybody get the right words in the right column? But you can't comply to success in this business of human gain. You can't comply to success. There has to be some energy, some zest, some connection, some engagement, some follow-up, and all kinds of good things that change human lives. Compliances tend not to change human lives. So the nonprofits need a way to add zest. These three questions are designed to do that. And we're using them right now with, I believe it's 11 of your agencies. The first one, how do you define success? Meeting results from your services. Whoops, don't just tell us how many people you serve, tell us how many got better. It was interesting, we had an early workshop, and I offered to do what I call a result audit of their website. They all took me up on it. And in all cases, what I found was I can learn on the home page or one click away how many people they served. I can't learn, no matter how many clicks I have, how many got better. So I'd love for them to get the who got better on the front page, on the home page. The other thing which is interesting is the minute the agencies believe that a high body count on service is what the funder wants, that's what they give them. The reality in many cases is you don't want to see a huge number at the level of service because it's too light a touch to make any difference. People who have major problems, a kid who's 2 grade levels behind in reading, coming up on the third grade high stakes reading test, where if you're an African American male in Palmetto High, if you did not score close to grade level in the 3rd grade, you have a 16% chance of graduating high school. This is serious stuff. So why are we lightly touching lots of kids when we could be spending more time with fewer kids in order to get to the gate? One of the things we're doing in this is we're looking at cost per unit of gain. Quick example. My client was the Freddie Mac Foundation back when they had a bunch of money. We had 2 proposals. One was, okay, for $25,000, we can mentor 400 kids. Another one said, for $25,000, we can mentor 100 kids. And Tia Weller-Pride, my program officer buddy there, said, you know, in the old days, we just said, well, that's a no-brainer. We'll pick the one that's mentoring 400 kids. 4 times as many kids get mentored. But then we asked this question, how often can they mentor? They were equally effective, so the one doing 400 mentored them. These were middle school kids behind in grade level on ELA, English Language Arts, and they could mentor them once a month. The program that did 100 could mentor them once a week. We can ask this question, is there any research out there that suggests how many times you need to mentor a middle school kid who's behind for it to make a difference? The answer, once a week. Mm-hmm. So if you look at cost per unit of service, wow, much lower price with the 400. But it turns out that the 400 being a light touch, they actually funded both programs. They made an investment in both, And the one that had 400 had 30 kids get to grade level. The one that had 100 got 70. So if you move from doing the math on cost per unit of service to cost per unit of gain, the one with 100 was favored. The second question, okay, nonprofit, how do you know for sure when success has been achieved? How are you going to verify that you accomplished it? They're all fond of saying, well, we're going to have an evaluation program and do a survey. Well, self-reported data on a survey is almost never a very reliable metric for whether somebody has changed their behavior. So we got to figure that one out too, and will. And the third question, how do you know you have enough time and money left to get to the success you have defined? Now, what nonprofits typically say is, well, that's easy, investors. I'm halfway through the year, I've spent half your money, and I'm halfway through my work plan, which tells you, of course, precisely nothing in terms of the relationship or burn rate of money and progress of participants. So part of this deal of results first has to be that we stop this silliness of giving lots of points for a work plan. It'd be like saying, okay, here's a corporation. You may or may not make me any money, but I just want you to do in the order that you could think that they should be done a year ago when I first made my investment. I just want you to follow your work plan. You're going to say, get out of here. On day 3, I don't care if you change your work plan. I don't want the lock to be what you're going to do. I want the lock to be what you're going to achieve. So the idea of a milestone that looks at participant progress, how do they get from where they are now, major problem in many instances, to the finish line. Next slide. Words are important. The older I get, and I've had plenty of experience in that domain, the more I realize that words really matter. Linguists are right. They set frames in which we think. So we're using with some care a handful of words. Here's the first one. We're investors in results. We're no longer funders who fund programs. We're not funding your program. Please don't tell me all the wonderful things you're going to do. Tell me what your result is and show me the chances you're going to get it. By the way, that conversation is a lot shorter. A result conversation is 1/10 the time of an activity or values conversation. A lot of what goes into funders is value-based. Is the program aligned with your mission? By the way, I've yet to see a nonprofit that has bad values, like we don't care about people. Have you ever seen that in a mission statement?
No.
No, it's all the same wonderful stuff, and especially if it's wordsmithed, all the neat, sharp edges and insights are gone, and it's the kind of pablum of we stand for excellence. But it doesn't differentiate nonprofits. It only tells you who's got a person who uses language well. Click a couple of them there, please, Susan. Perfect. Results. So you're using the word results. Now, you could use the word outcome, goals, objectives, but what you don't want to use, what Manatee County Results First does not want to do, is to have 5 different words for what you're trying to pull off for the people you serve. You just want one, and you have chosen the word results, the intended accomplishment from a program. Targets. In advance of the action agency, what level of that result are you committed to achieving? We call it a target because it's a naming point. We don't call it a goal or objective. What happens when nonprofits and their funders call something a goal? Invariably, they decide at the end of the day, well, we didn't quite achieve it all, but you never do. Our goals are aspirational. If you're dealing with 20 kids who are 2 grade levels behind, I'm sorry, I don't want to hear that none of them got to grade level, but you had a strong aspiration that they do so. I want commitments. I want those kids on grade level. That's what matters. So targets are commitments. This is an aiming point. We are committed to achieve that. And we work with and are working with your agencies to say, doable with a stretch. You don't want to make it so high up, oh, we're going to get everybody to grade level, or we're going to get everybody a home, or we're going to get everybody to this, that, or the other, because then you're going to wiggle off the result hook because you can't reasonably do it. You need to set your target so that it's doable, but with a big stretch. Milestones, that's what we just chatted about. How are you going to know along the way that you're going to make these changes? We've got to shift the focus from what we do as an organization to what they get. Put the rest of them up there, Miss Susan. Impacts or broader gains, verification. I'm not really fond of the term evaluation for this reason. If you were to formally evaluate the programs in which you invest that are under $100,000, the cost of the evaluation that would, quote, prove that somebody's program, quote, caused a change, the cost of the evaluation would dwarf the cost of the program. So it just seems to me silly to keep saying, well, we're going to evaluate. In a result framework, as an investor, you just want to verify. You want to know that if they set this target, hey, my first question is, did you hit it? You said you were going to get 15 kids to grade level. Please start with a yes or a no. And then I want to know, the only other thing I need to know is, would that gain have reasonably happened without you? And if the answer is nope, it wouldn't have happened without us, you don't care as the investor whether this program was 100% of the reason something good happened or 20%. You just need to know that it wouldn't have happened without the program, and that you want some verification, some data, some evidence that it really came true. This is a plaque that is on some walls. It's on some walls around here with your staff. It's on the walls of the agencies. It's got these words on it. Here's my experience. If we don't follow up and put these on the wall, we'll forget them. And we'll go back to calling it an outcome tomorrow and an impact the next day and a goal the next day. So we're attempting to put some rigor into this language and always use these terms. There's nothing better about one word or another. It's silly to spend a bunch of time deciding whether the word outcome is better than the word result. We just need to have one word, and we need to use it with some discipline. Learning. Learning is an example of many, many words that take on a different meaning if you're in a result-based system. If you're a funder, you'll ask somebody, well, what did you learn? And they will tell you all of the things they learned. And if you say to them, what are you doing differently? Many of them will say, well, I don't think we're doing anything differently. In fact, what we learned was to affirm the wonderful things we're already doing. In a result-based system, learning means a change in behavior. That's what it means. In fact, that's what social psychologists and educators from John Dewey on have always agreed the word learning meant, a, quote, relatively enduring change in behavior. So you don't get to say how much I have learned, how little I have changed. What you're doing differently is the proof of the pudding when it comes to learning. And notice we don't have to say to everybody, tell us about your 5 biggest screw-ups. We just have to say, what are you doing differently? What are you doing differently? Because obviously you must not have thought what you were doing before was overly brilliant, or you wouldn't have changed it. Click. We're working with these 11 groups. It would not be appropriate to give you details, since for the purpose of this work, these organizations became my client for a limited amount of time. I worked with them at an initial workshop and then followed up individually to help them get to what we're calling a result addendum. We'll hopefully find a word that isn't quite that fancy, but the point of it is that they prototype or experiment with having a stronger result statement than comes through with all of the language. So that's now used in their contract. I can give you 3 quick themes of this, and then Sherry and Susan and I are meeting later today to go through this in depth. The first is that many of them continue to want to talk about their services. It's a habit. It isn't easy for anybody to quickly move from being a funder to an investor, or from being a service-oriented agency to being a result-oriented agency. It takes a while. So when I first heard back from probably half these groups with the first thing they sent me, they wanted to tell me about all the wonderful things they do. The second is that when groups set targets, they initially tend to do so in terms of stuff that I can't verify and they can't verify. They'll, for example, talk about people who are empowered, or people who gain leadership capability or self-esteem. I can't see self-esteem, I'm sorry. And social psychologists and clinical psychologists argue incessantly about whether self-esteem even exists. So what I've been doing on that one is I always ask this question: what is it that a person or a kid or an adult or anybody else, what can they achieve with higher self-esteem that they can't achieve with lower self-esteem? That's what I want to buy. Self-esteem is the means. Tell me what's different. Tell me what I see and hear. I can verify what I see and hear. And it turns out the behavior, as opposed to disposition or attitude, is generally more telling for lots of reasons. The last theme I had when it came to verification is there's no way to know. Somebody gives out bicycles. I ask, well, who uses the bike? There's no way to know. Of course there's a way to know. Of course there is. And in fact, with this group, which was wonderful, we were chatting away on the phone, and I said, by the way, do they come back during the year? Yeah. Any of them ride their bike back? Yeah. Come to think of it, you see their bikes in the parking lot. Great. Let's get a high school kid to go out and ask each of them if they came here on the bike, verify that, and ask what else they're doing with the bike. We can figure lots of ways. They're not perfect, but they're really good to learn what people really do with a program. So these now, we're wrapping this up. There'll be a result addendum. In the prototyping period, get out of jail card. There's nothing punitive about it. We're playing with it. And in fact, prototyping is incredibly useful. Just try something. Don't do the old paradigm of spending a year plan. We plan, ready, aim some more. No energy left when it comes to fire. Fire right away. In fact, I love that adage: ready, fire, aim. By firing, I know and can correct an aiming point. I also build a lot more energy. So we're prototyping now so that when we talk about a full system to come in 2017, we've got some basis of enthusiasm and a lot of basis of insight forged in experience. Click. This is the full implementation of results first. Result-based application and review process. We're just starting to look at what's been done. You have new software coming in. It'll be, I think, a really great opportunity to look at that. Let me pause, by the way, for this commercial. Your staff is wonderful. If you knew me better, you'd know I wouldn't say that, and often don't say it if it isn't true. I've been with counties where most of the staff are compliance-based. They just want to linearly say, but can I check these things off? Your staff, including in the contract area, which is somewhat rare, is inquisitive, bright-eyed, and bushy-tailed. I don't know, Ed, what you put the water around here, but whatever it is, keep it up. It's good stuff. It's a lot easier to do this kind of work when you're not getting people to say, but Hal, we've always done it this way. Yes, and you've never been able to know what the results were. So we're going to make it. Result-based application review process, contracts anchored by what is to be achieved. We're even going to see if we can figure out a way to get the imagery different. You're not alone. Your contracts start with all this stuff of compliances, and then what you're supposed to achieve is the third addendum. Let's get that up front. That's the most important thing. That's where the zest comes from, not, wow, did this agency comply with all of our procedures and get their annual report in on time? Again, you're not alone. More nonprofits are penalized in America today for getting their final report in late than for having low results contained therein. That's the funder approach. So we want to do everything we can to get these results great. We're going to talk about tracking to success formats to be used by agencies and county staffs that will come as close as we can to sharing data in real time versus waiting for that final report. We're going to talk about an end-of-grant knowledge bank. What have we learned? Not just what has the agency learned, but what have we learned as investors? You want to be able to know the difference between high and low-performing groups, programs, kinds of people, and other critical factors so that you can, over time, adjust your investing accordingly. You want some co-investment strategies. You got the United Way. You share a logic model. You've got the Manatee Community Foundation. You've got the Sarasota Community Foundation, and you ought to be working with them. Why? Because silly them, some of these agencies don't believe that they're in one county or the other. They happen to believe they're in both.
Right.
Do we want to say, oops, sorry, you can't, anything you've learned in Sarasota is irrelevant here in Manatee, or vice versa? Oh, and silly homeless people, they don't know they're not supposed to cross the county border and only be served by one program. So it's really good to be thinking about how can we do some things together. And then we want those shared targets for agencies in a given investment area. Here's the one that really comes to mind. And this again, is a challenge nationwide. Early learning. Early learning. I've looked at the contracts, and I think I've found something like 9 separate metrics used to verify learning readiness. It's the embedded assessments in creative curriculum. It's the embedded assessment in high scopes. It's this test. It's that test. It's all kinds of things. And we need to settle on one. Otherwise, we got apples, peaches, pears, and everything else. I've had some fun working with the Early Learning Coalition, and Sharon Oakes there is absolutely wonderful at figuring out what the best metric would be. My definition of the best metric is the one that predicts academic achievement. I really don't care that there isn't any independent measure of a good metric other than if this predicted they were ready, were they ready? And how did they do? By the way, really exciting news, the Early Learning Coalition and the county school district have agreed, which is rare, on having a unique identifier for each kid so that we can track the effects of each of these programs and multiple programs on how a child does from preschool on. That is absolutely fantastic, and the county is supporting that, as you should, in critically important ways. That's it, gang. That is, I'm sorry, not gang, commissioners. So I would be, Madam Chair, delighted to answer any questions that anybody had.
Commissioner Whitmore.
Oh, what a breath of fresh air after our morning. I'm telling you, Hal. You were wonderful. It's all about accountability and outcomes. I don't know if you know that Medicare passed a law that they've identified 9 states in the United States where they're testing, and it's called value-based purchasing. Very boring, but I had to take the class this past week. And exactly what you're saying, they're front end uploading all the disciplines.
Yeah.
For instance, if a patient has a stroke, they do the speech, social worker, occupational, everything all at once instead of waiting to the end. It's because the Medicare and we are here are holding our providers accountable for a good outcome. And when you spread it out, you don't get it. You're right. At the very end, you should have started it at the front. So I read this over the weekend and I was saying, oh my gosh, this is all tying together for a lot of people. And I know the commission decided last year that we wanted to see something like this. We wanted to see what we're getting for our dollars. We wanted to see results. We don't care about all the other stuff. We want to see the outcome. So very refreshing, and good luck with the agencies that you're working with. And I think this is really a forward-thinking and moving ahead, so I really appreciate it. And I didn't know if you know Medicare had done that.
I did. In fact, the only thing I quibble with is they make it sound more complicated than it really is. Because at heart, that Medicaid change, the value-based, is really quite simple. And why the feds have to make everything sound so dang complicated and boring is a mystery to me, but I think it is a very positive step. I agree completely.
And it's reducing hospitalizations, reducing costs for the taxpayers, for the federal government, for all of us. So, but again, it's getting that patient better faster.
Yep.
And preventing all the other stuff that taxes the whole system. So, and that's kind of what you're doing here, so it's very refreshing. Thank you.
Thank you. By the way, when the first Affordable Care Act provision about hospitals losing money for faster than average readmission rates, a number of them began to change their behavior. Some of them began to use follow-up, even a case management approach, to make sure that somebody changed their behavior, like medicine compliances and exercise and things, to stay at home. In the old days, the hospital said, that's not our job. We're just here to treat them. And what that one provision did is get the hospital to realize we're not in the acute care business or even chronic care management. We're in the health business. And if the best thing to do is to follow that person home and make sure that they keep getting healthy so they don't have to come back, that's what we ought to be doing.
And they have case managers in all the emergency rooms now for
Yes.
that very reason, which
Yes.
they've never had.
Correct.
And they refer them to the ancillary, like home health or whatever, so that there's a continuity of care so they don't end up back.
Yes.
So, good discussion.
Commissioner Benek.
Yeah, it was a very enlightening discussion. I like the simplicity of it. I agree, words matter a whole lot, since we're all in the business of talking a lot up here. The idea of the investor, I like it, and I think it just needs to be expanded a little bit because some people might not understand the context, because we in fact represent the taxpayers of this community that did vote to tax themselves to invest money in children's services.
Right.
And so I had to remind myself that that's what we're talking about here. And it's probably a little bit scary to some of these groups, what you're saying, because it is so different. And I wondered if you might comment on that, how you get people past the scary part. I had a conversation with someone who was so mad about how they were not selected for funding, so angry that it was very difficult to even have a conversation with this person because the anger was so palatable. I literally said, take it down 1,000 at one point because this person was so angry. And I said, I will arrange a meeting. We will discuss this. You need to have your issues. But I have no idea if there's any results from this group. I really have no idea. So I really think this is something that is desperately needed because I've seen the conflict that can be caused when you have a limited resource and people are fighting for it. We need a better way. We definitely need a better way. And so I look forward to continuing this discussion. And also, I wondered if you've ever worked with the Patterson Foundation, if you've ever had any discussion with them, because they do an amazing job of working with nonprofits.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we're a little bit different because we're the government, but in trying to they just did an incredible project with the Women's Resource Center and got 2 organizations to say, hey, we're doing the same thing. Let's work together. I mean, it's just something I thought of when you were talking. So
I have worked indirectly with them. One of my clients is Roxy Jerde and the Sarasota Community Foundation. In fact, I worked with Susie Bowie, who's now head of your Manatee Community Foundation, and we did work on one project with Patterson. To your earlier point and question about kind of how do you get beyond that, first of all, I think you're quite right to in effect, if you get technical, you're the investing agent. The investor's the taxpayer, and they're entrusting you to invest their money wisely. I think that's always a good reminder. On the nonprofits, what's interesting is when you put a system like this in, the nonprofits that do not have very strong results resist it mightily. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, and you've got some in these 11 groups, it'd be inappropriate to name them, who are actually delighted because finally they're going to get a higher recognition because they get more kids school ready or they get more kids to grade level, and they've never been able, in the way the system works, to sort of strut their stuff, because results haven't counted for that much. So the ones that are high performing tend to like it. The ones that suspect they're low performing, frankly, often have problems with it. Also, the larger organizations have more problems with it than the small ones. And that's simply because they've got this infrastructure. They've got grants writers, for example, who literally use the expression, write a grant. As if I don't have to have a good program design, I just have to have a good grants writer. They don't fare quite as well in this new approach. So the smaller ones sometimes can come along. Now, what eventually happens is, I think the groups that complain, and there always will be, there's nothing we can do about that, will have less basis to complain. In other words, if let's say we're 3 years down the road and that angry group comes to you and you say, well, let me remind you that we're very transparent about this, that the biggest thing we look for is last year's and the year before that results. That's very predictive of future results. Could you tell me about your last year results? And if they say, not really, but I want you to know you've funded us for 30 years and my brother-in-law knows you're a fellow commissioner or whatever, you can say, I'm sorry, but we go by results. So unless we've made an arithmetical error in the number of people and the cost per gain of your program versus others, that's the explanation for why you didn't receive an investment this year. It isn't perfect, but the more that becomes public, you're not ready for that yet, but in 2 or 3 years, hopefully Result First will settle into the point that past results will and commitment for future results will both play a critical role, and not much else will be in the conversation.
All right, Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A wonderful report. What I'm glad, back when I was executive director of the Pell Youth Center and chairman of 13th Avenue and president and Big Brother and Big Sister, it always was the results was on how many people you had participating, but it wasn't the results. And we had to make everybody sign in showing where you had 150 that day, but it never was anything geared toward what the results of those 50 children were. And so I'm glad about we go into that phase. I mean, it's no different than you having 130 kids and you say, well, I got there's A students out of 130, but I got 50 kids and I got 40 that's A students. Those are results. And so when the county administrator briefly mentioned this to me yesterday, and I'm still studying this report, I wish there's something that we could have did years ago, because funding always was based on how many people participate, but it was no results, no measuring stick, nothing like that. And so a wonderful report that you put together.
What's wonderful is again, the county, your interest in it, the administrator's interest in it, and the wonderful staff that's making it happen. It's good stuff.
Commissioner DiSabantino.
Yes, thank you, and great report, and thanks for staff for working on this. And are your goals to incorporate this into the current recommendations for the current funding year, or is this going to be something moving forward? Because, we hear from people about the scoring system, which we implemented a few years ago, which we didn't have, so we had gotten to that level with the scoring system. But that's very arbitrary, and, a lot of personalities get involved in the equation, so to speak. It's only human to do that. So what are your goals for this immediate?
Well, we selected the prototyping agents to get us out in front with understanding how this can work. I'm not going to tell you exactly where that's going to get us until we get through this first phase with Mr. Williams, but it is our intention to just continue to move forward so that in the next year, all the programs have been decided. We're moving towards contracting all of those. And we will continue to do that. But as we phase in the new software system, which Mr. Williams mentioned, and staff will be glad to come back and talk in detail about that, there'll be ways to be moving towards results first with the other agencies. The matrix that we currently use, that was developed over time. When we started back in 1991, we had nothing. We had an ordinance with a bunch of words that said, this is what you'll do. And so over time, staff has created, with the support of administration, these different methodologies to be able to, basically determine what programs would be best for coming forward. And so the matrix will change dramatically or possibly even be completely different. And that's our goal for next year, and we're working on that now. Mr. Williams is helping us in October. Alan Donahue will be having a work session with their annual retreat, I guess it's really what it's called, with the advisory board. They're aware of this process. They've been briefed on it, and Hal will be here to present to them. And so we really have a collective group of people behind the effort, and it's our goal to just take steps towards making sure that we put this into the process right.
Good, thank you.
All right, I don't have anyone else on the board, so I'm going to go ahead right now and open this to public comment. Does anyone want to come forward on this? Not seeing anyone, we'll close public comment. Thank you so much.
Very good.
We look forward to the next,
Yes.
the next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Commissioners, it is right at 11:30, so we're going to go to the 10:30 item, number 32, Rabonia Neighborhood Action Plan. We will be breaking at noon for lunch, and then we'll come back at 1:30. I was really hoping we wouldn't have to do that, but anyway. Sherry, go ahead.
Madam Chairman, Commissioners, this particular item is the required public hearing for the potential adoption of Resolution R-16-135, approving the Rabonia Neighborhood Action Plan. Last week, we did bring forward some of these issues in a work session with you. We brought you up to date. The action plan has been out for review in 30 days. I think you've noticed there'll be several people in the audience that may want to speak to it. But in general, after the complete review of the action plan, you'll note that our consultant, Wade Trim, of which Amanda Warner, right here with Wade Trim, is here to answer any specifics, looked at a variety of different things within the particular plan, and it is the recommendation of the plan that it be forwarded to the Department of Housing and Urban Development for consideration of a award of recommendation for slum and blight in the area of Rabonia. Many things have been reviewed. There are a number of factors, all containing the report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I think we have gone over this. I just want to tell the public that we've presented to the board on at least 6 occasions, and I know you probably would like to hear from either the residents or you'd like to hear from Amanda, but the overall consensus is that the area is special. It needs to be looked at and handled special, and this effort is also in line with trying to attempt to get the Rabonia geographical area included as an eligible area for federal funds in the new 2020 census. So this effort is twofold, is to look at getting it qualified now so that we can address some of these issues environmentally. We also have issues with the floodplain there, which I think you saw in the report. And for those that haven't read it, the actual floodplain area is going to be our biggest challenge for making changes and complying with federal guidelines. And then lots of other conditions that we can address. The ability to have this plan reviewed now may allow for an amendment to our current or our upcoming Community Development Block Grant Program. It is under review right now. We're waiting for word from HUD on the action plan that you approved in June. And if that is the case, there are a lot of requirements under the federal guidelines for making any changes to your plan. And so I would just caution you that as we move forward, we need to, if this is approved today, we need to wait for that response from HUD. If they do support us, then we will be back to give you a timeline on what that means to the area. And I'm certainly here to answer questions. Amanda would also be able to, or anyone else.
Jerry, thank you. I don't have anyone on the board, so I'm going to go ahead and open this. I do have one. All right, you're fast, Larry. Go ahead, Commissioner Bussell.
Well, I defer to you if you'd like to make introductory
go ahead.
remarks. Okay. I'd like to essentially repeat what I said at a workshop that we had last week, because a lot of the principles involved in the rejuvenation of Rabonia are in the audience today. And I'd just like to congratulate you personally on what you did over the summer. And I think you've earned the right to keep going, leading toward someday a community association in a community building, thriving and self-sustaining and doing great things for your community. So once again, I thank you for what you did. And I encourage you to use all the resources at your command in Rubonia and get the people to be as excited as you have proven yourself to be. But thank you for what you did, and thank you for what you're going to do in the future.
All right, well, we're going to go ahead and open to public comment. I have one person that has signed up, Morris Goff. Mr. Goff, if you'd like to come forward, state your name, sir, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good morning. I'm Morris Goff, a resident of Rubonia. I guess all you know, and I want to thank Commissioner Bussell for the kind words. We did work hard this summer to get something happening in Rubonia, and we want to continue it. I want to thank again the Neighborhood Service Center and Charlie, is he in the house? They worked hard to get us in there, and I still see work going on. We're still trying to hold the fort down. We mentioned earlier with Hal mentioned about the school and the results coming in, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get results out of the few students that we do have coming in, not just by the numbers. We want to show those parents who can't help the kids when they come home that they can send them down to us. We do have volunteers that will help them with their schoolwork. I'm told this year that schools doesn't send homework home anymore. But the classes are so big now that all the children don't get it in the class. As for the neighborhood action plan, I'm glad that it's coming, it's moving. Rubonia, this is one of the things Rubonia's been waiting on for years. Hopefully, like you say, we're in a floodplain area. It wasn't always like that. And I tried to explain to the young planters, some of them, that we didn't always flood. As a child, we didn't. Growing up there, it wasn't a flooded area. Since the building of Highway 41 and some of the coverage of some of the flood zones that we had in the back of Rubonia, the swamp area, well, the water had no place to go but in Rubonia. I'm glad we're going to get sidewalks and the ditches filled, but I want the county to come up with the plan to find somewhere else for that water to go, because if we cover those ditches, the water is going to come down the streets. So you guys are going to have to get with the planners to let us know if they can open those canals that run north-south, and we got a couple of them that run east-west, that they can reopen them again, because the canals are still there. But right now, they're all empty. Those same canals I used to play in should have been dead by now from playing in them. You know, snakes and what have you. But they're there and they're dry. You just got to ride out and see them yourself. And I'm hoping that this is going to be part of the plan. Like I say, we're looking forward to our sidewalks and our ditches covered. And with all those mosquitoes nowadays, we're very scared of that Zika moving this far up. So I want to give my time to you guys and thank you again for the work you've done with us, and we're looking forward to work further. I appreciate the work from earlier this summer. Commissioner Smith, I thank you for your monies that you helped us with. So thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Goff. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to come forward? Come on down.
Good morning. My name is Charles L. Miller, Sr. Most of the commissioners probably have seen me up in quite a bit in my lifetime. I'm here to talk about the neighborhood action plan. I have a copy of it. Debbie gave it to me. I looked at it. It's a very good thing that we have been fighting for a long time. Some of the issues in there, when I read it, looked over, it took me over an hour and a half to read over just to look at it, and I had just a big smile in my heart saying to myself, maybe this time it's going to be done. So what I'm saying to the commission, I appreciate all the hard work and all the fighting. I probably gave a lot of you guys a hard time, but I mean, sometimes it takes that, you know. One guy told me a long time ago, one commissioner, Claude McGarrett, back in the 70s, he said, Chuck, always keep hope. And I took those words he gave me, and I've been going on from that time to this day. So what I'm saying to this commissioners, I'm looking forward to see my grandkids, sidewalks, drainage, things that haven't been in the last 100 years that we deserve. As this shirt said, we do matter. Thank you very much.
I love your shirt, by the way.
Hey, thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Oh, come on. Y'all have waited here all day, or all morning, I should say.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Agnes Brooks. I'm from the big city of Rubonia, Florida. And I want to thank the commissions for what they're doing for Rubonia. Finally, they decided they want to do something for Rubonia. And when that old saying is, wait on the Lord, be of good courage, and he will strengthen your heart. And that's what we did. We waited and we prayed. And finally, our prayers was answered. And we want to thank you today and continue to help us.
Thank you. Thank you. Keep those prayers going, will you, please? Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, commissioners. My name is Mary G. Brown, and I just want to take the time to thank everyone, all the commissioners, to Ms. Coye, her staff, to the Rubonia community. It's for the past 2 years, actually working as chairperson for the Rubonia Community Association. It has not been an easy job, but it's been a job that we needed to really take on, and we need to continue to bring our community together with our positive communication, the projects, the activities, the concerns of the entire community, and working hand in hand with this county commissioner. It needs to be continued. We started, we know that we're looking for a positive result. I will not restate what everyone has stated, but my concerns continue to be the same. I'm a very positive person. I'm an action-oriented person, and I enjoy people in general. So I know, without a shadow of a doubt, we're going to get the job done. Matter of fact, I feel that it's already done. There's a vision there. There's a what, when, and how, and we're going to continue.
Hear, hear.
Thank you.
Amen.
Amen. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Come on down.
I see Sherry looking at me, so I'm
Jerry's got you guys. Yeah. All this hard work.
My name is Barry Murray, retired school bus driver, 30 years, 35. And I like what you are doing about covering these ditches, because keep those kids out of it. All these different germs and stuff out there floating around in that water, and they be out there playing in it sometime. And I want to say to Larry Bussell, Mr. Bussell, him and I walked one time, and I showed him some different things about the plug-in where that water can't go out. What to do, asked him what to do about it. He said, well, I'll get in touch with you. And which he did. And last year, year before last, he unplugged it. He put new pipes down. I felt good about it. Then he went along a little bit more down the road, and he did something else. And I appreciate what you did. I'm gonna keep the prayers going up for you. You need the prayer, so we're gonna keep it going. And I thank Commissioner Smith for working with me off and on and try to get these kids someplace to go besides these streets, because it's no good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Keeping Sherry off my back.
Trust me, we try to do the same thing here. Anyone else like to come forward? All right, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at Sherry Corrier and her staff and Simone and all these millennials that she's working with, and she's look young as ever, just like them now. So I got to get me a millennial.
Is that the key?
That's the key.
That's right.
But, you know, you guys have really worked over a period of time. You've met with us, and I've seen the sacrifice in your face, and your staff, and all the participation and that they've done, even when they really wasn't working. They still was committed to Rivonia and other parts of Manatee County. And I just want to thank you for everything that you've done. You're one of the few department heads, I believe, that can run any department in county government. You're multitasking.
Hear that, Ed?
You never say no. You fight through controversy and even criticism. And I just want to thank you for everything that you have done, because you truly are changing lives, and you're committed to doing it. You just don't do it to pick up a paycheck. And it's in your heart to do it, and the residents really consider you part of Rivonia.
Amen. Yeah. Have to agree with that one.
Now, Charles, you got her all upset and we're all crying.
I didn't mean to do that.
Hot.
Truth ain't nothing
Where's
but the
Kleenex?
truth.
Commissioner Burnett.
So I said he's making me cry.
You
I
already
know.
did.
Making me cry.
No, well, I can't take all the credit. Really, Debbie, De Leon, sitting right back there.
Debbie and
All of these people.
Simone.
And it does make a big difference, because you do care. And it makes a huge difference that the people in the community care and have invested a very long time and have been very patient, and at times, Mr. Miller, very angry, and we get it. We get that it is very frustrating, and we know we're supposed to wait on the Lord, but sometimes we get impatient. Sometimes we get very impatient, but the progress, I think we need to focus on the progress that's been made and to continue that progress. And, you know, I worked for a long time for a civil engineering firm, and it's what we did was stormwater. And stormwater is so difficult. It's great if you come in and build new. What they do when they build new, they come in, you fill the land so you can create a grade and direct where the water goes. Well, back in the day, that didn't happen. Rivonia wasn't filled in, wasn't graded. So what do? Well, you have to have a plan, and you got to have some land in order to make it work. And I think that if we have the proper resources, we can get the grants, because the Water Management District still has funding to provide grants, but you got to have a match. You got to have a revenue source. It's something we're looking at. You know, something that we've asked the taxpayers of this county to say, look, do you want to make a difference throughout the community where there's already problems and that need to be fixed? Do you want to make a difference? Then you need to invest. We need to invest in our communities. So, you know, again, it's going to take time, it's going to take money, and it's going to take effort. But you got people that want that to happen, that are going to continue to work very hard. I don't know if we can get Larry to clear any more ditches. You know, he's getting kind of old. I don't know if we can get him out there with that shovel anymore, but I know he'll try. But I just want to say thank you, too, for being patient, for working with us, your new leadership, everyone that is kind of stepping up. Let's just keep the conversation going. I mean, that's what's going to be most important. But thank you all for being here.
Commissioner Whitmore.
And Sherry, you, everything that Charles said, ditto. And I know you need your staff, but it's your, like Ed said, you owned it, and you did a good job, so thank you. And we've got our group here, we've got Sherry and I call them the young'uns, the group that we have met too with Derek's group, so everything's starting to gel a lot, actually. We finally got a decent survey done. We were able to get all the neighbors walking door to door, got help. Simone's back there from God knows where she just came from. So she's here too, working with the neighbors.
Olympics.
But I really think I wanted to, but I really think I'm going to ask if Commissioner Bussell will make the motion to approve this.
I have one comment, please.
Yeah, we've still got commissioners.
Yeah, but I mean, he could make it, we
Yeah,
can still
that's what I'm waiting on
discuss.
him to make
It's
that
his,
motion too.
since
Yeah,
it's his
absolutely.
district.
I'm next on the board, and I just want to say that I know that this commission is very excited to finally be seeing this happening, and it's an honor for me to be able to sign the resolution as chairman of this board for Rabonia. So it's a good day. It's a good day. Keep the prayers going. We still have a ways to go, but boy, we're getting some good momentum. So it's good. Commissioner Smith.
Yes, I just want to state, I'm going to ask my executive assistant, Ms. Talley, to reach out to Mr. Randall, Mr. Goff, and Ms. Brown Goff, or Goff Brown, for a meeting in my office. I'm going to have her to give all three of you a call, hopefully today sometime, to set an appointment in my office, and one or two other people. Thank you.
Commissioner Chappie.
Yeah, you know, it's not just owning it. Sherry and her team, and this commission, but Sherry and the team really made us also believe in it. So the county believes in it, we believe in the community, we believe in Rabonia. And I thank you for that. I thank all of you for that and getting involved in the community, because that involvement has to be sustained. It has to be sustained, and you guys are going to do it. We believe in it. Thank you.
Be the
Commissioner
last one.
DeSabatino.
Yeah. And while we're here on cheering on Sherry Day and her team, you know, it's just not just this one project. I mean, you are everywhere. You're all over the county. And, you know, we all can't thank you and your teams enough, from down in Talavast, over at Bayshore, to Rabonia, to Samoset. You're at all the meetings, and you're really making this happen. And we really, really do appreciate all your hard work. Thank you. Great team.
All right, I don't have anyone else on the board. Commissioner Bussell.
Madam Chairman, I, with great pleasure, would move to adopt Resolution R16-135, approving the Rabonia Neighborhood Action Plan.
Second the motion.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Bussell, second by Commissioner Smith. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. It's unanimously approved. Nice to save the best for last today. Thank you all for being here with us, and
The only thing left is
we look
commission-
forward to more time together. What?
The only thing left is commission report.
Yes.
So,
Commissioners, we've got about 7 minutes before noon, so do you want to try and get through commissioner comments?
I don't have anything.
Well, I didn't
I'm
ask you
done.
yet.
I'm done.
it's like,
What a great day. Commissioner Bussell, let's start with you, sir.
I don't really have anything.
You just had the best of the best.
Right.
Commissioner Smith.
I'm not going to mention anything. We're on a roll right now.
All right, we're on a roll. Commissioner Whitmore.
oh, I'm sorry, I just got a couple things.
Excuse me, if everyone could exit that, so we can have our meeting, please continue.
Okay, we're still in our meeting, okay. This Thursday is the Making Strides Against Breast Cancer. It's going to be at the Ritz. It's, if you want to come, it's their walk. They had 10,000 at the polo fields last year. Please just go online and register, and you're welcome to come. As I already told you about the heroin overdoses, I have two more things I'm going to mention real quick. I know, and I'd ask my commissioners really not to make comments about this. I just want to say a few words because I'm hearing stuff. It's election time, and some nasty stuff are coming out, and I just want to bring up a few things that are totally incorrect. And if people have read it in the newspaper, they're going to believe it. And Ed and Mickey, you may just want to answer a couple of these things. First of all, did the Indigent Care Fund go in bankruptcy?
No.
Okay. Well, that was in the newspaper. It was from a candidate, I guess it didn't get endorsed. Did the emergency reserve fund go in bankruptcy?
No,
Did we even have an emergency reserve fund? Wasn't
we
it
didn't have
called-
anything called an emergency
Okay.
reserve fund.
Was this in a newspaper or a bulletin?
Yes, no, it was.
Oh, was
a-
our
it was a-
response as
yeah,
one of the
yeah,
candidates, or-
Yeah.
Oh.
The lack of, okay, and the plunging of our county into deeper debt through the issuance of bonds for development approvals across our cherished agricultural spaces. I couldn't understand that comment, and does anybody here, you two understand it and can respond? It says, and the plunging of our county into deeper debt through the issuance of bonds for development approvals across our cherished agricultural spaces.
Just on the deeper in debt, we have no deeper in debt situation in this county. We have a AAA credit rating from the rating agencies that would indicate the Board of County Commissioners are good stewards of the public funds. You have had a report from our outside financial advisors about our creditworthiness being one of the best in the state, top 6 counties in the state, I believe he said. We use debt appropriately. We measure the impact, but to say that we have plunged into debt is just an inaccurate statement.
Okay, just one more comment, then I'm going to run down real quick to show you something that I found on the internet. It was also said during the debate, I don't know why I got dragged into this, I mean, I'm not running at this cycle, so I don't understand. But I heard I got involved in animal services for a photo op. I mean, the heck that we've gone through the last 2 years about no-kill, do you really think that we all got involved with the welfare of animals just to get our picture in the paper? I mean, I just wanted to say that because it's totally inaccurate. It's totally just meanness, and that's not my style. I'm going to run down to here. I got to show you something that's an idea for the commission.
Madam Chair, while she's making her way down, getting back to the Indigent Healthcare Fund, the special act that authorized the county's sale of Manatee Memorial Hospital in 1984 specifically called out that the maximum term of agreements that the county could enter into with individual hospitals for indigent health care was 30 years. The fund lasted exactly 30 years.
I said 50.
Okay. This is real quick. I saw this on Facebook, and you know how we're talking about tiny houses. We're redoing our land development code. We've talked about thinking about outside the box. We got 70 properties in the county that are small. Some can't be developed because of our current regulations. And this is something, and you know, we all can relate. We hear this every day. I work with the elderly, and this just hit to a T, and I was wondering if the commission had any problems with our staff looking at this when they're redoing the LDC. It's a solution for taking care of the elderly and their family members. Are you ready? This is a granny pod. It's actually it's a 12 by 24 foot pod, and it sits conveniently in any backyard. And it actually, when you see the inside of it, for those of us that work with elderly that have, you know, unfortunately I have to say my husband's kind of in that predicament now, that have walkers, have wheelchairs, can't get around. Your family wants them to come and you can't, you know, you have a big house. It's something where they can actually live safely. Here's actually the inside of one. And if you all watch that tiny house program, it's about 600, Ed, what do we say, 500 or 600 square feet. It's something that we could actually look at in the land development code. These would be, and then we could make rules that it have to be assured, have to be immediate family members, et cetera. Because I know what some people will be thinking, they're going to rent it as a hotel or something. I'm looking at, for our senior care, our elderlies, our family members, that maybe we don't want them in our house, but and they want to be autonomous and be on their own. So this may be something you may want to look at. So if it's staff, you would at least talk about it, see if it's something you would want to have staff look at. That's all.
Can I comment on that?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure they're allowed in Sarasota already by their code. Granny flats, they call them.
Oh, I like that better.
That's pretty common zoning to have that kind of a allowable use, and I'm pretty sure it's either Sarasota County or Sarasota City does allow them, so we might want staff to look at that to see
Granny
that when we're
flats?
talking about land development code, about that kind of an allowable use in the zoning code.
We are looking into it
Okay, thank you.
as we speak.
And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner DeSabatino?
Nothing, thank you.
Commissioner Chappie?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. County Administrator.
Nothing to report.
Sorry.
She totally skipped.
Commissioner Benak, would you like to go now?
Sure, I was going to follow up on something, because Carol started this question, and it's something that I keep hearing about, how we are running a deficit budget. The county is running a deficit budget. That is one that gets repeated
Constantly.
a lot.
I hear a
on the
lot.
campaign trail. And I say, it's not a deficit budget if we are not allowed by law to have a deficit budget, correct?
That would be correct.
Okay. So when people say we have a deficit budget, they mean that we're spending the money that was in the budget stabilization fund, which is not our reserves. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
It's not your restricted reserve.
Yeah, he's clarified.
It is a form of reserve, but your budget is balanced. It meets all the state requirements. You have maintained your AAA credit rating, so there's no impact on your credit. So the inference that we are in financial dire straits is not appropriate.
Well, some
And-
candidates wouldn't be able to have
and-
anything to talk about if they didn't say that.
And we have our reserves in excess of the minimum required.
Yes.
In what are, in fact, our reserves.
Yes.
But there is not deficit budgeting occurring at the county level. We know that that budget stabilization fund is running out, because we've talked about that every time we've talked about the budget.
Your budget is 150 separate different funds, and we have challenges in one of those funds that we're working on, the county's general fund, but there's roughly 149 other funds. All of them are healthy. Overall, the county is in good financial position, and we are facing the challenge that we have in the one fund.
Which is a big one.
And I just want to say that, emergency manager, Mr. Hermie came around and spoke with all of us, and I think it's good. We need to be aware that the tropics are heating up, that they've upped the number of predicted named storms, that we need to be ready, we need to have our supplies on hand, you need to have your plan done, you need to know where you're going to go, who you're going to take, and be ready. So just issuing that caution as we know we're getting into the real, peak of hurricane season, so everybody needs to be prepared.
Commissioner Bustle, did you want to make a comment?
Yes. I don't want to sound negative about this, but if you want to learn more about little homes, go to HGTV. They have it on there quite often, and
I watch them all the time.
It is.
they look sort of neat. Maybe
People like
we
them.
ought to, incentivize or make it possible for them to be used in our county. That's fine. But I expect that you better include the cost of a divorce if you're going to buy one for your golden years. Because those
Close
walls
living.
get very close when you start looking at them.
This is mainly widows.
You bump your head,
Or
after you bumped your head a couple of times on those loft beds, you're going to be thinking, why in the world did I do this to myself?
That's why we have granny flats, and then you start calling your significant other granny. So
Yeah.
Wait a minute, let me think about this.
I like granny flats.
joke.
Are you finished? Anything else?
No.
Did you have anything to add, sir?
No.
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am?
May I just make one quick comment? I know this is out of
Absolutely.
character. Mr. Goff said something today on the the city of Rabonia that resonated with me. He's trying to tell the youth of Rabonia how it was and the day and the history.
Yeah.
I've been in touch with our historical parks director. We would like to help them form an exhibit in their community center when they get it up and running that they can keep out there for their youth. And we have aerial maps. We would also like, if there are residents there who can give an oral history, in our museum in Palmetto, we can include the oral history that they give, the narrative.
What a great idea. Thank you, Angel.
You're welcome.
That's wonderful. Mr. County Attorney? Mr.
Nothing.
Palmer?
Nothing.
Free. Commissioner Chappie, you have
No, you already
anything?
asked him,
I
Ben,
know, but
thank
I
you.
just want to make sure. All right. I only have one thing, and some of you might have already seen the email. There's been 5 new cases of Zika, and one of them right here in Pinellas. And they're saying the one in Pinellas is a non-travel case. So I've been in touch while we've been up here with Nick Azera and some others. just saying that we probably need to make sure, our residents need to make sure they're not leaving water laying around anywhere outside. Any pools that are open, that
Sounds
we
great.
need to make sure that they're being taken care of. So it's getting close. It's probably, before it's all said and done.
It's in Manatee.
It's going to be all over the state, I believe. So just wanted to mention that to all the commissioners, because I've already, sitting here today, received one email in reference to it. So just thought I'd bring it up.
And the governor's been on all these talk shows
Giving it
advocating to
$5 million.
get funding and.
He's trying to do everything
top
he
of it.
can. The federal government, I think, is working very
So
well.
that we got an official notice on this about? I haven't seen anything.
It just came as a news
There's an
flash.
email from Bay News 9 where there's 5
Right.
new cases, one of which is in Pinellas, and it's a non-travel.
You said Palmetto. Pinellas or
No.
Palmetto?
Pinellas.
Pinellas.
Oh, my gosh.
Did I say Palmetto?
No.
No.
Oh, I think
Oh,
so.
I'm
No.
sorry. Maybe I misheard.
But it's a non-travel case, so.
That's where it's different.
So we need to stay vigilant. It's coming. And that's it. And you know what? It's only a little after 12, and I think we're finished.
We go Nick right
So
there.
this is an awesome meeting. Thanks to all of you. Excuse
We
me?
don't need public comment, David.
At the end.
You know what? I saved you earlier. Let's stop now.
Thank you
All
so
right,
much.
meeting's adjourned.
No, you didn't.